All right, I've got 7 PM, so I'm, excuse me, to call the regular Board of Education meeting of September 24th, 2025 to order. And I would request that you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'll begin tonight with a bit of a somber moment. Most of you know that Anchor Bay lost one of its own in the past couple of weeks. It's been a difficult time for the family and friends of Logan Bowen, as well as difficulty for my teachers and my staff that worked with this young man. So at this time, I would request a moment of silence on behalf of Logan. Thank you. To kind of add to that, again, as we're talking about the somber moments, there's, also some young people who have lost their lives in this immediate area in the past month. It's actually an alarming rate. 4, 5, 6 kids, as far, I guess, west as, Armada, east to Algonac. And then we lost some lives as well of young people up in Port Huron recently. So keep those families in your thoughts and prayers as well as Logan's family. And with that, sir, if you could call the roll.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Here.
Mr. Powers,
Here.
Ms. Berkmeyer, Mr. Vinatieri,
Here.
Richards is here, Ms. Knox.
Here.
And Mr. Green.
Here. We have a quorum, so with that, at this time, I would entertain an approval of the agenda as it has been presented.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Knox, supported by Mr. Sunnyberger. If you call the roll, sir.
Sure. Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer.
Yes.
Mr. Vinatieri,
Yes.
Richards is yes, Mr. Green.
Yes. All right, so we have an agenda set. We've got a couple of presentations that our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Rathbun, will be giving us. There were some concerns expressed at our last meeting surrounding SAC transportation. And then, as we've all been made aware of, there is certainly a budget concern, and that kind of spills over into our food service. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Todd, if you go ahead. Make sure your mic is on, please.
Yep. Good evening, Board of Education. Pat did a good job of summarizing, or President Green, I should say, did a good job of summarizing what we'll be presenting tonight. I want to start with a disclaimer. Right now, things are changing so fast, and there is so much ambiguity as to what happens if and when the state and the federal government shutdown occurs. So all of the information we're going to be presenting here tonight is based on, at this point in time, what we know. It is subject to change and could change as quickly as tomorrow. We believe that MDE will come out with further guidance for districts about possible shutdown implications and how we should handle certain things. So as much as I want to share all the information with you tonight, it could change tomorrow. So I just want to keep that in mind as we move forward. Our SAC numbers, you can see here, I'll kind of go through and explain what we've got here. So we've got the 6 different sites that you see there. We've got each site is licensed for the number of students that it could accommodate based on space, based on bathrooms. So that's what that first column is. So at Ashley, based on the space that we have in the bathrooms there, we can accommodate roughly 90 students per day. You can see our current enrollment at Ashley is 107. And that's really because not every kid shows up every single day. So you might have some kids that are coming Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. You might have some that are just coming on Monday and Tuesday. Others coming on Wednesday and Friday. So it will really vary, and it allows us to go a little bit over that license because that's the per day. So as long as we have slots available that day, we have students enrolled. The next column over is the 24-25 enrollment. You can see the numbers there. Then the next column is the wait list. That is our current wait list that we have today, as of today. I talked with Carol earlier, and we have roughly 35 students that are on the wait list. That number is actually a little bit better than it may appear. The 8 that you see on North that are on the wait list, all of those students are 6th graders who we traditionally have not provided service in the term, student care for 6th graders. So if you take 8 off of that, it's really, like 27 students that are K through 5 that are not eligible, are still waiting or hoping to get in. The good news is, with a couple more hires, we should be able to accommodate that group. We are waiting for one additional hire, and I'll cover some of this on the next slide, but for one more hire, we're waiting on just getting the fingerprints from SAC licensing. So we do a fingerprint here, but SAC also does their own fingerprinting. So we're waiting on that second set of fingerprints. And as soon as we do that, we'll add another staff member that'll allow us to bring at least 18 to 20 more students on. In 2024, we had a wait list of about 70. Our staff is a little bit bigger, only about 1, and we've added 1 person at North. Otherwise, the staffing has stayed the same. And we'll touch on that in just a little bit. Tim, if I can have you advance. So this just gives you a little bit of information about each of the sites. So like I said, we have 6 SAC sites. The sites are licensed for a combined 579 children per day. Currently, Ashley, Great Oaks, and Nuldrit are full. And if you were looking at that, you might say, well, there's still some slots available, but there's an 18-to-1 ratio that we have to have 1 caregiver for every 18 students. So even if a site would allow 90 kids to come into that site, if you've only got 2 caregivers, you could only have 36 kids at a time. Lighthouse, Lottie, and Middle School North do have additional slots available. And so we're continuing to encourage people to sign up for that. The ratio right now, as I said, is 18-to-1. Other limiting factors can be the bathroom, the size of the space. So all of those things kind of go into how many kids we can have in our SAC program. Like I said, Anchor Bay has hired 3 additional staff this year. 2 of those are replacement. 1 is a new person. And then we have the new candidate that we're hoping to bring on maybe as quickly as next week. The biggest barrier in hiring in talking with Carol is just the shift. So at an elementary school, our SAC sites are operating from about 6 in the morning till the start of school, 9 o'clock. And then they shut down during the school day. And then they would open back up around 4 o'clock and be open till, I believe, 6 or 6:30 at night. So obviously, that's an odd work day for most people to get up that early and come into work for 3 hours, then go back home for the rest of the day, and then have to report back at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to your SAC site. So that seems to be the biggest barrier. Carol did indicate that, if we were able to raise compensation levels for staff, that would be helpful. You may remember at one of our previous board meetings, we actually did exactly that. We raised our SAC price or our SAC compensation levels. Tim, next. And then we just wanted to include this slide as well to kind of show you kind of what Phil was alluding to at the last board meeting, that SAC is relatively self-sustaining. You can see in 23, 24, we did dip a little bit into the general fund there. If you look at the very bottom, you can see that's a negative, indicating that we had to dip into the general fund for less than $5,000. And then you can see in 24, 25, we had a profit on our SAC. So like I said, we've talked about a lot of different solutions to try and get other employees in the district to come and work at SAC. So if you're, for example, if you're a 3-hour lunch para and you would like to come and work in the afternoon at SAC, we've encouraged our staff to do that and indicated to them, that they would be able to do that. Even in situations where it may throw us into overtime, we have said to staff, go ahead, we'll cover the overtime. We need the bodies. So we continue to work at trying to staff that. I'm hopeful that with a couple more staff members, we can shrink that waiting list to 0. Are there any questions on SAC before I move on to food service?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, and in terms of getting other staff members like who are already employed by us, I understood that I think we had like other food service members. Are there certain members you don't allow to pick up extra hours? Because I was told that there's food service employees who tried to, and they were told they can't double dip. And I know that's been a thing about other positions as well, in terms of maybe, I'm guessing it sounds like it's because they're not full-time employees. So the idea of like, if it would push them into benefits or it being too hard to track or something.
So there's a couple things going on. We have to be very careful because SAC is a collectively bargained group represented by a union. We also have AFSCME representing another union, which would be our food service bus driver folks. So oftentimes you can get into a bit of a conflict between the unions because one union is performing the work that is currently assigned to another union. So that can be a complicating factor sometimes. In terms of not allowing certain people from the district to work in SAC, that has not been the direction we've given. Like I just said, if you're a food service worker and you want to go and work at SAC after school, and even if you're getting some overtime pay for that, we've said we'll do that for now. We'll pay the overtime to allow our students to be here. So I'm at a loss, Lisa, to try and address what you're asking, because I don't know of anything like that going on. If there is, I would encourage people to get a hold of me and we will solve that very quickly. I've made it as clear as I can to our staff at the management level that we would love to have staff come in and do that. So I'm not sure quite what the obstacle is, but I would like to solve that obstacle if I get the information to do so.
I believe it's if they pushes them into where they would have to qualify, they would go over 8 hours, so then therefore they would qualify for full insurance.
Yeah, they would. I mean, in most cases, these are hourly employees, so we do a measure of those folks. So if you're working 3 hours a day and now you do the SAC and you're above the 8 hours, we would continue under ACA to measure you for a period of time before you would earn that eligibility for those benefits. So it's not an immediate, as soon as I work 8 hours, I get the benefits that day. There's a measuring period that goes on to that. And then if over the course of a year, which is our measurement period here at Anchor Bay, that person averages more than 6 hours, then yes, we would offer them some health insurance as required under the Affordable Care Act.
I'm curious to know a little bit more about the shift schedule for caregivers. So what time do they start and how long does that morning shift go to? And then at what time does the afternoon start and when do they end?
So it depends a little bit on the building. I'll speak to the elementary because we have 5 elementary sites and only 1 middle school site. But the middle school would be very similar. So it starts at 6 in the morning for our elementary school. Our elementary schools begin at 9 in the morning. So SAC would wrap up just very shortly, 5 minutes or so before that. So it's really from 6 to 9 in the morning is kind of the hours. And then at night, I believe it's from as soon as school's out, 4 or 5 minutes after school's out, SAC begins. And then it runs through, I believe, 6:30 in the evening.
6:30. Okay. So if we had someone who, let's say, worked at SAC starting 6 a.m. sharp, and they had certain tasks that we gave them in between that period, so they're not going home for 3 hours to come back to work that same day, that would essentially be about a little bit more than 12-hour day. And if we did that with them, they would probably work 3 days a week, and then we'd have to alternate based on who provides care to that classroom every week or so often. Is there an opportunity to do something like that? So we make the schedule shift a little more accommodating so someone can work one direct block 3 days a week, and maybe that might incentivize more people to apply for that role?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. I mean, I think that we would, I don't know how many folks want to work that 12-hour day, but even if it was work in the morning or work in the evening, tacked on or paired with their regular daily schedule, we would be open to that. And even if it were only for 2 days a week, we would still be open for that because as I discussed earlier, sometimes we have students that are just showing up on Tuesdays. And so if we could have somebody there on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, when those students are, we could get 3 or 4 more students potentially into that site.
Yep. Okay.
So we would allow for that.
Thank you.
Todd, can we take a look at the tracking by school that you had, your first or second slide?
Yeah, if you could go back, Tim. Thank you.
I have a question on that too, Pat.
Go ahead.
Even if we add another staff member at North, is our maximum license per day still 54? So if we add a second staff member with that.
Currently, yes, because the 54 is the maximum. It
For
doesn't
one
matter.
staff, for one
Well, it based on the size of the room.
Gotcha.
So you could have Ford Field and you could only have 54 kids in there.
Okay.
So it's based on this, there's a limit for the number of kids in a given space. So in this case, although our commons could accommodate well more than 54 kids and does every day for lunch, we cannot have more than 54 kids in there for purposes of SAC. The licensing does not allow it.
And restrooms factors into
Well,
it.
even I was thinking the same thing when it comes to 18 kids to 1 adult, but our average classroom has 20 plus.
24,
So
right?
why-
Right.
No, and it's
Ridiculous.
weird too, because like it's 20 per bathroom within the proximity of so many feet where it's 18 kids in a class. So even that doesn't necessarily line up. And even at North, because they've only approved licensing for the commons, but not the gym yet. So we're still waiting on that. So that would give us another space that could
Okay.
potentially work.
All right. Thank you.
Would there be any financial advantage to hiring another person at North? And not that I want to burden our transportation people anymore, but shuffling the 17 kids that are currently at Ashley's wait list over to North, segregating them kind of from the 6th and 7th, 5th and 6th graders that are there, knowing that they're, pre-K through 5th graders, 4th graders.
Yeah.
So is there an opportunity to do that? Could we do that? And I know our transportation is maxed. I know we're going to talk about that shortly.
Yeah.
And now I'm adding, essentially another route
Well,
or a shuttle. So-
Pat, to your point, though, we could do the same at Lighthouse. Lighthouse is the same grade
okay.
level. We've
Yeah,
got
so-
adequate space at Lighthouse. It's a staffing thing. If we could add another
Staff at
another
Lighthouse.
staffer, then there would be an opportunity to have some of those folks from Ashley potentially go over to
And, there certainly would be a
Lighthouse.
permission from the parents to do that.
Yep.
But it seems like, we're breaking even pretty close on this year. We're actually projecting to make a little bit of money. that maybe it'd be worth, and certainly the bus ride's about 45 seconds. Not that I want to stick any more kids on a bus because it would actually just be easier for them to drop them off, pick them up right at school, drop them off at Lighthouse as they begin their route. One of the
Correct.
drivers that's going
Right.
that way.
Yes,
It
that's
wouldn't,
what-
it wouldn't increase a route time more than,
a minute or couple minutes.
In
Yep.
McCons, there's no SAC at McCons right now currently.
No, there hasn't been, and there hasn't been, Dennis, for quite some time. It's something that I think we'll try and address into the future. Because it makes sense probably just to have them there, because those are the folks that are also coming over to Ashley, being bused over to Ashley, which
Right.
is increasing.
So we are busing interdistrict.
We are.
Moving, okay, all right.
That was gonna be kind of my next question was, I don't, as long as I remember, I don't think, as I've been around, I don't know that we've had SAC at McCons, and it used to be staffing trouble. But, if we're more flexible with who we allow to fill, that might become a better option too. I'm guessing that's why Ashley's, has more of a wait list than everyone else as
I would
well,
agree
so.
with you.
Right.
Yep.
Do we have current license at McCons?
We do, well, I don't believe we do. Because we have not had a SAC site there since I've been here,
Gotcha.
the
But
last 7 years.
would this building have any, is it a separate cert for SAC versus like
Mhm.
GSRP and things?
It
Okay.
is, it is. Separate licensing, yep.
Maybe we should look at both McDonald and
Just get it done.
McCons. Yeah. Just.
And
to find
I
out.
know we're getting way into the weeds, but maybe we could consider sending McCons over to
Lighthouse.
Lighthouse.
Mhm.
I don't know your numbers. That's your gig, but
Yep.
if we could pick up those 17 students, obviously they're either Ashley students or probably McCon students or both, and find them a home. They certainly would fit at Lighthouse. We could do some shuffling.
Right.
Any more questions? Because I know we're getting really, really deep into your operations now. So
I just have a quick one. We look at today relative to where we were a month ago when we brought this up. Like how much of the problem have we solved? 50% of it, 75%
I
of
would
it?
say it's significant. I think we were upwards of about 150 folks that were trying to,
Yeah, so about
you know,
75%.
Okay, so we've made a lot
down
of
to-
progress.
I would argue
Okay.
we're down to under 30, so pretty significant.
Okay,
And a lot of it is just getting, once it settles in and people have a rotation of, okay, my kids are going this day, or I have coverage that day, and getting into the routine. Because we're still, North has been the challenge now of, we have all these people paying and they're reserving spots. But so far, I mean, there's been a couple days where only one student is showing up, but they've been reserving the times for it. And so but that typically settles in after a few weeks.
and if you reserve, but you no show, you don't pay?
No, you pay.
You still
they're
pay, so they're paying to
Yeah.
not, okay.
Yeah. And so that's why you don't know if they're going to show up, and then they don't show up, but then
Right.
we got to
they-
save the slot either way.
Yeah,
So it works on the balance sheet, but then it leaves people who could have been there without
exactly,
having
yeah.
access to the program.
Anybody else? All right, back to you, sir.
Okay. Food service, next slide, please. So I thought I'd start with a history. I'm not going to go too far back, but in 2021 and prior, Anchor Bay followed the traditional federal meal reimbursement program that's been in place for since the 70s. And basically, it is you fill out a free and reduced application. You either qualify for that free or reduced, and if you don't, then you're required to pay for your school lunch. In 21-22, during COVID, the federal government passed some legislation, an act to essentially cover all meals for students. So that was the first time that Anchor Bay had ever had all of their students eat for free. In 22-23, once COVID was done, that legislation or that act was rescinded, and we all returned back to that traditional federal reimbursement program that I had just described in the bullet above. In 23-24, and then again last year in 24-25, all meals were free to students based on a combination of the traditional federal funding and the state having a grant that would make up the difference for reduced and paid students. So free students obviously are free. Reduced students, they probably have their meal reduced by about 90%. And then the other 10% they would typically have to pay for. The state paid for that remaining 10% or so. And then all the paid kids, we actually do get a very small reimbursement of less than 20 cents for all of our paid kids that the federal government reimburses us. But the remainder of that meal was made up by the state. And so we, Tim, I'll have you flip to the next. So there's some uncertainty right now as to whether the Michigan will continue to do that funding as they have in the last 2 years. Obviously, this will have a significant impact on the district if the state does not choose to continue that funding. As of right now, September 30th, 2025 will be the last day that the state will allow free meals to be submitted for reimbursement through the state grant. The impact, I'm jumping a little bit around here, but the impact is roughly about $200,000 a month for breakfast and lunch that the state is paying for. Not the federal piece, but just the state piece that we're concerned might go away is about $200,000 a month. Anchor Bay is what we call a CEP district. That stands for Community Eligible Program. It's what it allows is for districts that have some level of poverty, doesn't have to be the poorest of districts, but some level of poverty will qualify for this CEP option. And then what it does is it allows for the federal government to reimburse a little bit more money. And so the state has been very encouraging to districts to enter into that CEP option. The good news for us, as we understand it today, again, we're hoping for clarification tomorrow, but by the fact that we are a CEP district, we would be eligible to use some of our excess funds from the food service fund to pay for the piece that the state may not cover. So Phil said it earlier, there's a pretty substantial chance that we're going to have a shutdown. The concern is, come October 1, what are we going to do for our students? And I'm jumping around a little bit here, but we could then use monies out of our food service fund to pay for those students if that was the preference of the board. In districts where they are not a CEP, they will have to pay out of the general fund. They will have to pull funds out of general fund to pay for these meals. So in 24-25, also to give you a little bit of context about in total what we're talking about. So you can see there, it's about $460,000 that we received in reimbursement for breakfast and a reimbursement of a little over $1.2 million for lunches that we got. So just under 1.8 in total is what we received from the state last year for reimbursement. And that's the piece that we are concerned may go away unless the state acts with a new budget. 30 days, the reason we're kind of talking about October and continuing to fund through October is also that CEP districts must provide MDE with a minimum of 30 school days notice. We also want to provide, obviously, our parents with notice so that they can prepare if we were to return to that traditional federal reimbursement model of charging for students that do not qualify for free and reduced. Eligible districts may not ask. This is something that's a little bit of a catch-22 here. So although we're a CEP district and that's great, we can get a little bit more reimbursement from the feds and we can use some of the money we've gotten from the state to cover folks into October. The bad news is right now, as it reads, we cannot ask our students during October to sign up for free and reduced lunch, because if you are a CEP district, they are not supposed to fill out the free and reduced applications. So, we're in a bit of a catch-22 there where we'd have to use general fund money if we opt out today, could do that. But that would allow us to have students start filling out the applications. But if we go with the CEP and take the money out of food service, technically we're supposed to not fill out the free and reduced meals until November 1st, which is problematic because kids are going to be getting meals on at the very beginning of November before those applications are accepted. So we've put a call in, and we're trying to get some clarity, hopefully tomorrow, from MDE. I had a conversation with a person at the nutrition today, and I said, well, if we're providing notice to you that we're going to stop being a CEP district as of the end of October, would that be sufficient for us to then go out to our students and ask them to fill out free and reduced applications in case the funding isn't there? And she said, that seems reasonable, but I need to check on that. And so we're hoping to hear back on that soon. Tim, next. So really what our recommendation is that, and we shared this with the finance committee, and I think I won't speak for them, but I believe the recommendation was, they agreed with this recommendation that we would continue to fund meals through October 31st, 2025. Although that will cost the district roughly, $200,000 to $220,000 out of our food service fund, we think it makes a lot of sense to keep that continuity going. There is a chance that the state budget will get solved before October 31st, and we will have that funding in place. And if that's the case, then we've basically avoided any interruption to any of our students' lunches and breakfasts, and having them fill out extra paperwork or having them pay and then reimbursing them. Allowing this also, like I said, allows parents an opportunity to get on board and understand that starting November 1st, we could be returning to the previous federal charging model. And then finally, it will also give us some time potentially to fill out those free and reduced applications if that's what it comes to. So we're hoping that during October, we'll get the go-ahead that we can go ahead and have them fill out those applications and get ready for November 1st if we indeed move forward to initiate that charging for non-qualified students. So there's in your action items, I'll just wrap up real quick and then take questions. In your action items, there is a possible resolution if it's the pleasure of the board to move forward, as we've talked about this evening. There's a resolution for you to vote on later. Obviously, that resolution could be amended if that's also the pleasure of the board. I'd be happy to take questions.
Mr. Rathbun, what traditionally do we use the excess funds in the food service for?
Traditionally, we use those, and they have to really be used by law for program improvement. So it would be purchasing new ovens, purchasing higher quality food. You can get kind of the low grade chicken nuggets, or you can get the really nice chicken tenders, right? So we can use those funds to increase our food quality. We can use those funds to increase our advertising and if we wanted to add a salad bar, the cost of adding that salad bar, the actual equipment, that could be paid for out of those funds.
Okay,
We can't use it for wages though, correct?
Cannot use it for wages. And well, I take that back. I guess you could use it for wages potentially if you were having more offerings and therefore you needed more staff,
staff.
then maybe you could make that argument. Specifically, what you can't use it for is construction. So like if you're like, we want to blow out a wall and add a new part of the cafeteria, we would not be able to use it for that.
okay. Would there be any deficiency that we would have to cover from another fund if we were to do this?
No, currently the food service fund has about $1.7 million in it. It's improved a lot over the last several years as everybody's been eating. So I think we could adequately cover the 30 days that I'm proposing, could cover beyond that. If you wanted to go further than that and go further out, that would be a possibility. I would not recommend, running that 1.7 down to 0, but if it was the pleasure of the board to run it through November 30, we could afford to do that.
Thank you.
Brian?
Todd, is there uncertainty whether or not when they eventually pass a budget, it's going to be included in there, or is it just a matter of when they pass the budget? Like, are we expecting it to be in there? It's just a matter of when the budget passes, or are we uncertain whether or not it's even going to be there?
Great question. So I'll try and speak to each. So in the Senate proposal, they're proposing that we will continue on as we have for the last 2 years, and that there would be funding for those. The House has taken a little bit different tact. They're saying we're going to do away with that categorical. We're going to give you a higher foundation allowance. They talk about a foundation allowance of a little over $12,000. And then what they said is, if you want to use that extra money that we're giving you for food service, you can pay for it out of general fund and subsidize it that way. If that's what you want, we're going to give you more wide control.
And actually, yeah, it wouldn't be the full foundation allowance. 10,000. Right now, the House proposed budget is $10,025 per student for your actual foundation allowance. But they would create this.
It is a categorical.
It's a super categorical for 1 year.
For 1 year.
$1,975 per student. That they're basically they're trying to take all of the categorical funds from the transportation, from the mental health, from the security funds, all of that, put it into one and say, here you go, we'll get you the $12,000 for 1 year. You decide what you're going to do with those categoricals. So then you could decide. The challenge with that is they're also bringing up every single rainy day fund in order to get it to the $12,000. So it would truly be one-time funding. On the other half, there's more politics that come with the food service, because food service, when it originally started, was not necessarily to handle free and reduced lunch. It's because there's subsidies for farms. So they were buying all this food and all that. So you have this, so then put it into place, because now there's a place for it to go. So there is, I think, a strong likelihood it will continue, because of they still want to do the subsidies on the other side.
If we give a 30-day notice to opt out of CEP, and then the budget comes and it's business as usual,
we
can we walk that back?
We can
Okay.
rescind it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Good question.
All right. And then I guess my final question would be, if this all goes away and we go back to pre-2021, call it, was that program meeting the needs of the community in terms of the people who needed the free and reduced lunch had access to it? Did we have large portions of the community who were kind of stuck in no man's land, where they didn't qualify, but they didn't have the resources to adequately feed their kids? Was the program working?
I would say for the most part, yes.
Okay.
But I would say there were certainly individuals who kind of, were on the low end, that
Right.
it was a burdensome to their family budget to pay for meals, but they didn't quite qualify for free or reduced.
Okay.
So there were instances certainly of that. And
They were few and far between?
I don't know if I'd say that, but not, maybe less than 3 or 4%, something like that. And oftentimes, we are able to use other funds to kind of subsidize that.
So my question was, to be clear, all of the funding issues, and when we're talking about free lunch for everybody being discontinued, we are also including free breakfast. That also means free breakfast.
It does.
As well. Okay.
Correct.
So free breakfast will only go to those with the free and reduced program.
If we were to return, correct. Yes.
And then my other question is just, is there any sort of requirement or even maybe any talk of, because I don't know if it's legally required, about there won't, let's say we go into a shutdown for a period, we can't or won't ever potentially get any back pay for what we do? Or are they not, is the state not allowed to back pay us? Or would they have to choose to do that? Or how does that look? Like,
They would have to choose. So basically what we were told, and this, again, this changes
Would change tomorrow.
hour by
Yeah.
hour on what they're doing. So the plan right now is they know it's going to probably go late into the night, okay, whenever they do this. So they will pass a budget and then they will come right back because they know there's going to be errors in that budget. And so they plan to then come back and do a supplemental budget. It's almost guaranteed. This is what they've done every time they've gotten close to it, because they do the budget and most people don't even get to read it. So they do it, they put it out there. It's really, when it comes down to it, like we were told that there's about 4 to 6 people in the room. They go through it and it comes out to be like 500-600 pages. They set the budget and then they know that there's errors in there. It's not until several weeks later when it goes through the fact, like the actual checking for errors and all that stuff, and it goes through all their staffs, then they get it. And then they plan to do a supplemental. And because it's the same thing, if you are, some districts are taking loans out from private lenders, because if they didn't take the state aid note, then they have to go to private lenders. And so there's some talk about doing something so you can offset that interest, because if you incur that, just taking it out, you're going to incur costs. And will they do something to offset that? But they have to do something in order to do that. It just won't be,
Yeah.
it will not be
They're
in the
not
initial
by-
budget.
Yeah, if
no.
they just pass the legislation will be effective as of that date. They would
Yeah.
have to intentionally say
has there been any
this is
talk about that?
retro
Or
back to,
They haven't even been talking on the budget really. So, yeah.
Just a couple of notes. We're fortunate that we have that money sitting in our fund. There are a lot of districts that don't have that money sitting in their fund. There are a lot of districts discussing how they're going to get through the next 60 days if they don't receive that payment. And there are a lot of districts that don't have the option of paying for their student meals. They have to return to, to free and reduced only. We do have a little bit of a luxury there that I don't have our exact numbers, but during COVID, our food service fund increased substantially just because of
Yep.
usage. And, you guys that work in business know that, the incremental staff addition to put out another 100 meals is usually pretty nominal, that you need the staff in the building to perform a task. And then if you add another 100 meals on there, that staff can traditionally still handle that task. So food service has been, we've banked a lot of money, but like I said, if you look at a lot of other surrounding districts, they've got $200,000 in there. They've got kitchens that are falling apart. Not that our kitchens don't need some help.
They
'cause you
do.
can always buy new equipment. But a lot of districts don't have the luxury to even have this discussion that we're trying to undertake today. So.
and if I can tag on to that, we're talking about food service, but really this is potentially a general fund issue too, because if you don't get paid in October, we don't get paid in September, you're basically going from August 20th to November 20th, 60 days without getting any income. There's, I believe, during that period, 6 payrolls that occur. For us, a payroll is about $2.5-3 million. So, that's about $20 million. And so fortunately, we have a fund balance in our general fund as well. Otherwise, like Phil said, there's a lot of districts who are scrambling. Some districts have even taken the hard line of, we're going to end up shutting down until they pass the bill. So, we are in a fortunate position right now, having a fund balance both in food service and our general fund.
Any further questions before we move on?
Do we use the reduced, the free and reduced applications to determine any other type of aid
Yeah. So
separate from food?
yeah, so that is the basis on which they award Title I funding, I should say, in particular. So they look at the prior year and whatever percentage of students you have that qualify for that free and reduced lunch, that they use that as a basis for the Title I funding.
Like even sports fees and other types of fees, or?
No, well, we do for our free and reduced students. If there is, fee. In some cases, we will waive that fee if we think it's going to be detrimental or
So
too
then-
impactful to the
So then why
student.
can't everybody be a football player and fill out the form?
I will encourage everybody to fill out the form.
And the challenge that we're having across the state is that with the free and universal free and reduce is what it's called, everybody gets it. People have stopped filling out the forms because why do I want to deal with this form? Possibly embarrass my student or whatever their holdback is. So the percentage of truly free and reduced people has dropped statewide because no one's doing the applications. There's no reason to. I know we're gonna, they're gonna feed my kid anyway.
Yeah.
So the other concern that we had when we talked at finance was trying to figure out how we could give enough notice so that kids didn't show up at school on, November 1st and we tell them we don't have your documents. You need to get these documents filled out. Of course, we're not going to turn anybody away. We're going to feed kids that, we're not built that way. But if we can't, the concern is that people aren't going to fill the forms out. They're not going to take it seriously. So we're trying to find a way that we can get through this by meeting the state's rules and regulations and that we're not going to hurt our students. So finance talked about this at length, just trying to figure out the solution of, how we can help our students without, spending $1.5 million to do it. And there's just a lot of unanswered questions about getting reimbursed to, when do we see the money? When are they going to reimburse us if we continue? CEP has its advantages. It also has drawbacks. So at length, we talked about it.
Yeah, there's really two silver linings, if you can call it that, through this process. Is one, the federal funding lags a year, so because it's based off the previous year. So the federal funds that were frozen, unfrozen, frozen again, and unfrozen. So that will be good for this year. It's the next year that we're worried about. And then that's part of the federal shutdown. The other part is really think that if whatever they decide, if they continue the lunches, if they continue GSRP is the other one that we're looking at, that will be it going forward. So if they stop it, it's going to stop. If they continue it, it will continue going forward. And you'll expect to see that in the budget, which we just haven't had that clarity because we've been bouncing back and forth. And so I think hopefully before October 1st, they have it set. And then if it's in there, we just know we can plan for the future.
Todd, are we able to put this, if it does go back where parents have to fill out the form, can we do it like an online application or does it have to be
Yeah, it is in the form of an online
is, okay.
application. Yep.
Do we already have that tool existing or is that?
Oh,
something
yeah.
We should, okay.
Yep.
That's good.
Speaking of general fund balance, if we stop getting funding from the state, what's the drop dead? How long could we run the school district without money coming in?
Last time I calculated, it was about 53 days, school days.
Okay, thank you.
And that includes continuing universal free and reduced meals, correct? That's all encompassing.
No, no,
No.
no, because
You can't use that for general fund. Yeah.
Oh,
well,
okay.
yeah, no, we did it separately because we said we could continue the food service, utilizing food service funds, and the general fund would be utilized for operational purposes. I think Phil's saying you can't use food service funds to you can't move that into the general
Right, I know
fund.
you can't move them in a month.
Basically on the survey that we were asked, December 1st would be our drop dead date roughly.
For Anchor Bay.
Yeah, for Anchor Bay.
The 53 days, does that include building maintenance for the rest of the year? Okay, so that is basically 53 school days of having staff on site. Then at that 53-day mark, they'd all have to go home. We wouldn't be able to pay them anymore. And then going forward, we'd have enough money in the funds to cover the building maintenance expense costs for the rest of the year.
Not necessarily. No,
Okay.
In that 53-day calculation would take all of our reserves that we currently have to cover operations for 53 days. And then we would have nearly a zero fund balance. So no reserves. And if there's no budget, no income to continue that maintenance into the future.
And there, you can do extraordinary measures and all that, like the feds that call it, or we could look at borrowing if it came
Yeah.
down to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's obviously that's what I'm looking at is, you know, I don't want to get us in a position. I'm saying hypothetically speaking, if it gets to be this bad, I think it's prudent of us not to get to the point that we evaporate our general fund balance and then eliminate the possibility of us to maintain our buildings, then incurring a higher cost because we're putting ourselves in a bad position, bad situation. So obviously there have to be due diligence there.
I could not concur more.
Thank you.
So if our students are at home watching, hoping for a break between Thanksgiving and Christmas, this board is going to make sure that doesn't happen. So just lost a few votes, but that's okay. We're not shutting down. That's the goal. So, all right, anything else on this?
Yeah, just a suggestion is, you know, if you reach the point of the food service changing with the free and reduced, is can you make the free and reduced application like a block to the login of the Meal Magic account to put your money on the account? Like you would have to
I would-
fill it out.
I would have to, yeah, I would have to find that out. I don't know the answer to that.
Everybody would have to fill it out to move forward, and then you have your,
And you're saying is, does this step one in order to be able to put money in your account?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can,
I'm going to
We can think
guarantee
about
the
that. We
state's
can-
got that block.
I'm not, I don't know. I
but
don't know if Meal Magic has that ability, but
Yeah.
we can
That's
look
a great
into it.
thought though, for sure.
No, it is, yeah.
It's a good
People
idea.
haven't used it, yeah. For a while.
Right, there's no reason to.
Yep.
Okay, if that's it, let's move on to
Transportation.
some busing.
Yep. Tim, next slide, please. Okay, so I thought I'd just kind of give you some general information about how our middle school busing is doing. So I had our transportation director, Steve, pull the routes today so I could get a kind of some information for you about that. Currently, our longest AM route is about 56 minutes. And that would include going all the way to middle school south, middle school north, that same route. They get dropped at 41 minutes, and then about 15 minutes later, they get dropped at south. So that's our longest morning route. The shortest morning route is about 31 minutes, with kids getting dropped in about 21 minutes to north. The average morning route is about 43 minutes. One thing I'll say is that, this isn't vastly different from what we've had in the past. We've had, because of the way we're busing students, a lot of our students in the northernmost part of our district were being bused all the way down to middle school south. And so that was a fairly long bus ride of, sometimes over an hour. So this is redistributing a little bit of that, those longer bus runs. So you can see at night after school, we've got our longest one is about a 60-minute bus ride. The shortest one is about 41 minutes, and the average is about 48 minutes. What we do is we reverse the route. If in the morning you are the first one on the bus, you're going to have the longest ride to your school. So we try and flip that on the going home. You'll be the first one off the bus, so you have a shorter bus ride at night, so that we don't have somebody who's on the bus 60 minutes 53 minutes and 56 minutes in the morning and 60 minutes at night. So we try and flip-flop those to try and make it a little bit more feasible for each student, and nobody's getting stuck on there for the longest period of time both ways. Busing routes seem to be going pretty efficient at this point. It's taken us a little bit of time to adjust. It's a lot more buses servicing each of those middle schools. In the past, I think we had maybe 12 to 14 buses, and now we have as many as 24 buses that run to middle school north and then to middle school south. Construction that we've had here in New Baltimore has been a little bit of a challenge. We expect our routes will shorten a little bit due to once the construction goes away. We also expect that the bus routes will continue to shorten as the ridership starts to shake out. So we'll start to discover, well, this person, they haven't ridden the bus even though they signed up for it. It's been about a month and a half. They haven't ridden the bus. So we're going to knock that stop off of our route And, you know, that could cut several minutes off a route. We also have 5 buses, I believe, coming here in October. We continue to hire drivers. And so one of the things that we'll do once those buses arrive and we have additional drivers, we're going to look at some of our longer routes, the 60-minute route I just talked about, the 56-minute, and we're going to see if we can make 2 longer routes into 3 shorter routes by adding a bus. So that's, once we have those additional buses, that's our plan to kind of continue to knock that average amount of time that kids spend on a bus down. Next slide. Thank you, Tim. So wanted to talk about, this was kind of a request from the last board meeting. So if we were to try and do the transportation for middle school north and middle school south simultaneously, so that you didn't have kids that were getting picked up by bus 1, they go to both middle school north and middle school south, we would segregate, and middle school north would just pick up all of its students. It would have to go around the entire district and pick up all the 5th and 6th graders. And simultaneously for south, we'd have the buses circulating and picking up 7th and 8th graders, but keeping them separate on separate buses. So in order to do that, what we kind of looked at is we would almost need to double that fleet, because they're going to be covering the same geographical area to pick those kids up. It's not like all of our north kids live on the north end and all of our south kids, 7th and 8th graders, live on the south end. There are plenty of 7th and 8th graders that live on the north end. So those buses are really going to have to kind of cover same ground. So we said probably an additional 24 gen ed buses, 1 special ed bus. We talked about, and then you can see there is about $4.2 million to purchase those buses. There would also be obviously a lag on that. It's about 12 months right now to get a school bus. Additionally, we'd have to add drivers, because all of our drivers would be driving, or the vast majority of them would be driving for the middle school north, and then we'd need additional drivers to drive from middle school south. But we would only really need those drivers for a couple hours in the morning to do the middle school south run, and then the afternoon to do the middle school north drop off, because the rest of the time we've got adequate bus drivers for the high school. We've got adequate bus drivers for our elementaries. So it'd really be adding those folks for 2 hours. I think I have up there from 7 to 9 in the morning, and then from about 3 to 4, 3 to 5 in the afternoon, something like that. So, you know, very similar to SAC, hard to get bus drivers to come into work for 2 hours in the morning, sit around all day, and then come back in the afternoon and work for 2 hours. We have a 2 hour, the reason I'm using 2 hours is their route might be a little bit less, but if they report, we have a minimum payment of 2 hours for our bus drivers whenever they report. Additionally, we'd have to add a mechanic. The annual cost of that would be about $90,000 with benefits and everything. Additional radios and cameras for our buses. Additional parking lot space. Right now, if you've been in our busing yard, we would not have the space to accommodate another 25 buses. So we would have to pave some additional part of the parking lot where we currently have our fencing. There's some green space between the fencing and our current bus yard. So I just kind of inquired from Barton Mello what that might cost, and they gave me a ballpark figure of about $500,000 to pave that. I think that might be a little bit light, but that's what they told me. Additional dispatcher. If you've got twice as many buses running around, you're going to need an additional bus dispatcher. And finally, fuel and maintenance for those buses, about $280,000. Tim. So I just tried to put together real briefly a summary of kind of those costs. You can see in the summary of transportation expenses, we've got about $1.2 million of annual expense, which would include things like the drivers themselves, mechanic, the dispatcher, and the maintenance and fuel. And then we had just under $5 million, 4.8 there of costs associated with one-time costs, if you will, just to purchase the bus, the cameras, and those kind of capital items. So that was kind of the cost involved with that. So that was kind of the end of my presentation for transportation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
So Todd, can we go back to that previous slide?
Yep.
So I understand if we were to run 25 buses to north, 25 buses to south, that we would take essentially our middle school transportation cost to $6 million. If I add those two numbers together?
Yes, in year
Okay,
one.
in year one.
In year one, yes. In year two, you'd probably be just picking up the $1.2
The wages,
million, the annual kind of,
the wages and the.
yeah, and that would go up just because every year, we would have wage increases and costs and so forth. But in year one, yes, that would be accurate, what you're stating.
How long did those buses last for?
12 years, 12 years is the recommended time of service.
Yeah, that's a good way to
And
say
I'm
it.
gonna guess-
12 years is recommended.
I'm gonna guess that we have some that might be a little bit over 12 years.
We're getting.
Or did
we're
we get
getting
rid of
pretty
most of
close.
those
We're
now?
we're in pretty
Okay.
good shape, but when I first got here, yeah, we had some oldies, but we've done a pretty good job. We're getting pretty close to that recommended 12 years. I would say, to try and really answer your question, I see a lot where people stretch them to 15.
Into 15. Okay. So I did the numbers, 4.2 million divided by 12 is about $350,000 per year. If you annualize that cost, yeah, assuming at the end of 12 to 15 years, you're probably gonna have to buy another round of additional buses as well. So that would be an additional, yeah, it would take that up to like $1 million addition to all those other, it's probably about $2 million, I think, per year, if you take
Ye-
that initial cost and sort of spread it out.
Yeah, and that's kind of, Dominic, what we've done,
Mhm.
really, to be honest with you, is we've tried to bake that into, as we've had better budgets, we've baked that cost in so that we're not waiting 12 to 15 years and then going out and spending $6 million. We're kind of trying to do that as we go, where we spend $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 each year and start renewing the fleet. Because the other problem with waiting 12 to 15 years is, what if in 12 to 15 years you don't get a bond passed or something where you can get your hands on $6 million to go out and buy 25 new buses? Then you're in trouble, because, where if you're buying them consistently, I only have to worry about coming up with 3 or 4 buses. I can probably squeeze that out of my operations versus trying to fund it all through a bond or something like that.
And that's typical with everything else related to COVID. Buses were about $100,000
Oh,
when we entered COVID, and they're about 175 now.
yeah, yeah,
In 4 or 5 years. So who knows what the hell's gonna happen in 12.
yeah. It's incredible how much they've gone up, how fast.
No, and there is another option that we kind of talked about, is you could do a 4-tier busing, but then you'd have to change the times, because when we talk tiers, like elementary, middle school, high school, so we do 3 tiers right now. You could do a 4-tier, you just have to shift the times that have that gap. And then there is extra costs in that you could have your bus drivers would be driving longer and wear and tear and mileage and all that stuff, because you don't need as many buses, but it's just now it's shifting just time for
Yeah.
the buildings.
So the high
And-
school would start earlier,
And
potentially.
You could do
Or go
that
later.
earlier, elementary later.
I think
but-
high
but
school
it-
might get mad at you if you.
Yeah, you
They
could,
started an hour early.
6 a.m.
Yeah.
start time wouldn't go well.
Out at 1?
or you
Yeah.
could do half an hour,
Or on the backside, I
Yeah,
think it
yeah.
would be, if you had your elementary teachers there till 5 o'clock in the evening,
Right.
they might not be too happy about that. So it's a balance. You may remember at one point we did have a 4-tier just for our elementaries. We had, I think, 3 or 4 of them running at 8:30 and then the others running at 9 o'clock.
How are the buses doing, getting from, like, in that mix from north to south, like in that drop off period? Like, are they getting there on time? Or I've heard, I know, like, my kids say that sometimes their bus is too early And so they have to sit but then they'll say like, we always go, and I know you mentioned like the buses are maybe taking different routes so that not everybody's on the same spot, right?
Right.
But like it sounds like maybe the path their bus takes, having to make a certain turn takes forever, to be able to do it. And then so even though they're getting to north too early, it sounds like, but then they are actually getting to south, like more on the late end. So
Yeah.
how are we doing on like,
Yeah, I
managing the-
think we're starting to get it down pretty good. What was happening, most of the buses were arriving at North in plenty of time, because the high school routes are typically done and they're getting there in time. There's a couple stragglers, but the first couple of weeks, because of the sheer volume of buses at Middle School North, there are 24 buses. Students were having a hard time. These are fifth graders, really. Trying to find where their bus is and where do I get on and so forth. So the first couple of weeks were a challenge. Now I think that Middle School North is able to, usually load up and move out in about 10 minutes, which is phenomenal. And then I feel like more and more buses are starting to get to South earlier. Our preference would be to have the buses arrive just before students are let out. We would prefer to have the buses all parked and have their parking brake on so that, there's no chance of anything happening with students. And so that would be our preference. For the most part, I would say 80 to 90% that's happening. We always have a few straggler buses at the end who are running a little bit behind at South. But again, South is doing an even better job than North is. And I think we're getting those kids out in 7 or 8 minutes. So once they get out and get on the bus. Now, if you're the first kid out the door, yeah, you're probably going to sit on that bus for 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, maybe, waiting for the rest of your classmates to get packed up and get out there. There's always a couple stragglers that, I see one kid walking with his backpack, or I forgot my phone, so I'm running back to get my phone, and that can hold things up. But I think the kids are really doing a really good job, and especially this week, of being able to get loaded up on the bus safely and timely, and therefore our routes are but there was definitely some challenges the first couple of weeks. Lisa, you were spot on with that.
And I know at last meeting I had brought up the sitting 3 to a seat. And so I promised one of my children I would talk about this today. So I had them look this up, and I learned myself because I discovered, why there's no seatbelts on the bus, and then that it's actually that the backing of the bus seats are padded to be like
Correct.
basically a
Correct.
block. And so I was looking because they're saying they've got some kids 3 seat, and they've kind of, at least I don't know if all the buses do it the same, but they've got assigned seats. So, and this is for the middle school, but some of them are assigned 3 to a seat and sitting like that regularly, and saying how there's not like enough room. And truly, like, if I imagine if there's 3 grown adults trying to share a bus seat for a half hour, that wouldn't be very fun.
Yeah.
So I was looking up, and, there are no laws, against that. It's generally recommended like that there's 3, you could sit 3 to a seat with like smaller, younger, like your elementary kids. And then it says, it doesn't really specify like middle versus high school, right? So it's just
Right. So yes,
ideally,
3 would be the
2.
maximum that you could ever fit in there. Obviously, you're exactly right. As the kids get older and get bigger, it makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to get 3 high school students in a seat.
Right. And I feel like middle school is probably, I mean, I don't know if we ever have that situation at the high school level, but middle school's that in between maybe, and then with this new busing situation we have. But that's, I guess, something as I was reading about this and just realizing, for you to be safe on the bus, you need to have your legs not in the aisle,
Correct.
right? So that could be
Facing forward.
unlikely
Yeah.
when you're 3 to a seat at the middle school age. So that's just something I would like us to maybe consider in how we fill our buses moving forward. I know, it sounds like just like SAC and trying to guess and estimate who's actually going to show up even day to day is difficult. But like if we are adding routes or something, if we could look at something like that
Yeah,
to
we will,
alleviate
you know,
those.
That's a great point. So in addition to just the length of time, and oftentimes the length of time is equal to, heavier routes, more people on that route. Not always, but it can sometimes indicate that. But we will definitely look at that as well. Not only the longest routes, but maybe the buses with the most students that are on those buses to try and, again, when we get those new buses, kind of eliminate the crowding and also speed up the delivery time and the drop off time.
So a couple things there, Todd. Maybe we could take a look at specific routes and figure out what the capacity, what the scheduled riders are of that bus.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you guys are probably still doing census counts. Are your bus drivers counting when people are getting on a bus?
They are. I don't know if it's every single day, but certainly during count week, we'll do another count, which is coming up here in October. They're required to count every single day. So I know initially, like the first couple weeks, we were really having them count and keep track. And maybe the last couple weeks, not as much, because it's kind of settled down. But we'll continue, in that first week of October as we're required to do.
And the last thing, I don't know if you want to run it through policy or it's just something you want to discuss with Steve, is 10 days is more than enough time to establish whether a student is going to ride or get on a stop. And I know in our rural areas are very similar to other districts like Rochester, Romeo, where we're pulling up to a student's house to pick them up. If we haven't seen a student at a stop or an individual stop in 10 days, we shouldn't even be stopping on that 11th day. 10 days is more than enough time. And then again, if a student is sick, they can call transportation and, hey, Johnny's going to be back on Monday. I know he's been gone for 2 weeks, but we need to figure out some type of standard to where it's okay we're authorizing our bus drivers to continue on. You haven't picked up a student in X amount of days.
Yeah.
We need to continue on rather than losing 40, 50 seconds, stopping, waiting in the street.
Yeah.
For someone who hasn't come out in 10, 15 days.
And I don't know if we have a written policy on that, but I can tell you that certainly there are conversations that are held with the drivers. The drivers supply the notes for the first couple weeks to the transportation director, Steve Tucker. He goes through all of those notes, and those notes would include things like, this person hasn't gotten on my bus for all these days. And if that's the case, then they make those adjustments.
The only thing I'll add for the board is I stopped, I guess it's probably been about 2 weeks ago now, into Middle School South. So Mr. Rathbun was outside with his clipboard running up and down the sidewalk. So was Mr. Tucker, our transportation director, up and down the sidewalk. Mr. Latona was out there. He actually, that particular day, had our Chesterfield SRO was out directing traffic, as well as our Fortis school safety officer was kind of at the entrance, making sure that the flow of kids out was okay and nobody was coming in. So it certainly got a lot of attention, and I appreciate that because it looks like we're getting to the point where the noise is stopping and we're getting a little more consistent with our service. So I appreciate that.
Yep, absolutely.
Any
Todd,
oth-
how are we staffing wise? Since we're on the topic of transportation, are we fully staffed?
We are currently fully staffed, but I think I had mentioned earlier, we have 5 new buses coming. So I've encouraged Steve to keep hiring, let's find 3 or 4 or 5 more bus drivers that we can put out there and address overcrowding if that is the case. And then same with the length of the route, if we can shorten that.
Thank you.
In construction, we just need construction.
Yeah, if construction went away, that would help.
Well,
a
I'm
lot.
pretty sure it's going to get worse today or tomorrow, right?
No,
Down
yeah.
Green Street before it gets better.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a total closure.
Yeah.
I'd
That's
have to look at the press release, but if there's one direction or the other, you won't be able to go. So
Some of our longest routes are actually the ones closest to north because they have to drive through. the
they can't get
construction.
around.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
In the morning, are we still opening bus doors before teacher contract times or building opening times?
You know, that was a topic that just came up earlier this week. I met with Heidi Stevenson, the elementary director. We're working on that. There's maybe some fundamental disagreement between myself and Heidi on that particular topic. I feel like they should be opening those doors about 10 minutes before school starts, allowing those kids to come in and get some lunch. And they would like us to wait until 5 minutes before the start, or I'm sorry, breakfast in the morning. So we are working on that particular topic. It's interesting you bring that up because that was a conversation we had earlier this week. And I'm hoping that we will come to some resolution on that. For now, we are having bus drivers, kind of hold the kids for 3 or 4 minutes until the doors open at 5 minutes to 9. But I would like to see that practice changed.
So we have buses getting to buildings before they can get into the building? So they're
We
spending
are-
41 minutes getting to school and then
We-
another 5 or
well,
6 waiting?
What we tried to accomplish through all of our work this summer, and there's a lot of it, was our goal was to get buses there 10 minutes before the start of school. We understand if buses are arriving 30 minutes before the start of school or 25 minutes, that's a problem because they don't have the staff necessary to deal with that. And we fully understand that, but all summer the way we moved forward and worked at it was we'll get those buses there 10 minutes before the start of school, and then so that the kids can get off, get into the building, get their breakfast, and get to class.
All right, last call. Not quite 2 a.m., but it's last call for questions on this topic.
I couldn't hear your question very well, Jamie, but so the buses this is an elementary issue?
Primarily, yes.
They're there 10 minutes before school's scheduled to start, or it's 10 minutes before the doors have been typically
10
open?
minutes before the start. So school starts at the elementary at
But
9
we don't
o'clock.
have staff to supervise if we let them in. Is that what we're saying?
That's what I'm being told.
Okay.
We're working on that. My feeling is that 10 minutes before is a reasonable amount of time for students to be dropped off.
I do think the teacher contract is like very close to
I think it's maybe
minute,
7. is
isn't
what-
it? Yeah.
isn't
The teacher contract is that, but we have a number of other, supporting staff
Yeah.
that are there early. We have options in our Schedule B to allow teachers to earn extra pay if they wanted to do some bus duty. So there are options available to us. I know at Middle School South, for example, Phil Latona and I worked out a problem where the parapro is getting there at a certain time. We needed them to get there about 15 minutes earlier so they could assist the student getting off the bus and into the school. And so we made that change. We added 15 minutes to that person's day. They were happy to do it, and it all worked out. So there will be a little bit of work on our part to navigate this with the elementaries, but I'm confident that we'll do that.
Okay, now it's final last call for questions. All right, moving on. Item G, superintendent's update.
Tim is going to pull up presentation. So even though we just kind of finished a lot of construction, we are already turning around to the next phase, which is our largest phase of the entire bond. I want to pull this up. So this will be Ashley, this will be Naldret, this will be South. And so this will be the additions onto Ashley, and we'll walk through each building really quick just to kind of give you an idea. So the first thing is this is the timeline. So we have a couple revisions. Our goal is we seem to get the best bids if we can do it between the 1st of October and really November 15th because it's hunting season. So it's hard to get bids after hunting season starts from vendors or contractors. So we're still on target for that. Our goal is we've been meeting with teachers and building administrators in order to kind of set all of that up. So you can kind of see our goal now is by the 29th. Again, part of this is because it has to go to the state, and we're hoping we know if there's any shutdown that there's going to be this big, like, people will be working on stuff to get it in, and you have to wait for licensing. And as we've seen, it's taking longer and longer and longer because they keep adding more regulations on that, on plan review. So that's another part of the reason that we're trying to get this by the end of this month. So right now we have our final page turn, then it'll go out to bid. It'll be out there for several weeks. And then the goal is to get the bids back in November and then present it to the board for December, and then work to begin in the spring with some pull ahead projects if we can, kind of like what we did with North, what we did with the high school, and so on. So next slide is just basically our this is meeting with the elementary teachers, the art teachers, the special teachers. What do they want in their rooms? Meeting with the architects and the administration and our Barton Mallow representatives, because we're talking through, like, how do we do this? What do you want? We don't design specifically for a teacher. It's more like, okay, how many sinks do you want? Do you want 2 sinks, 3 sinks, whatever? Okay, let's standardize that across, and they have to agree. Next slide. So this is Ashley. So, and then we have to break it into basically phases of what we're doing. Part of this is based off of how intensive is the construction. So you can see the yellow area, that would be addition. So the yellow area at the top middle, that is a new media center that would be added on. Part of that is also, we would take the dark red portion there. The small yellow portion to the right, it's actually more, but that's just our kind of placeholder. That's where the additional classrooms would be added, kind of going to the south. And then the kind of like light red or pink there on the left-hand side, that is the current older classrooms that we are going to do the same thing we did with North. So we'll take those classrooms, totally refurbish those, make them larger classrooms. And then most of the blue area is, those would be, now that we're adding on a media center, the media center will become a science and a STEM area that once we vacate that. So this is kind of the process that we go through with each building to kind of break it up. Part of it is it's just logistics of where we can move people. So talking to principals to get input on that. The basic gist of it is build a new space, be able to move people into it, vacate the old space, work on the old space. But there's always things here and there that you have to kind of adjust for, because if we want, it's part of it is the vendors, what do we have? The contractors, are they doing the same thing? So if they could work on the same thing, and because we want to, the reason all of this is we want more bids, and they can bid across different buildings and hopefully drive down those costs. So that kind of gives you an idea of how we phase it. So this is Ashley. We don't really have dates yet. We're still in the phase of just chopping it up and looking at potential, like, concepts and all that. Next slide. And then part of it is, it's also interior, but also exterior. So we know that part of it, when it's all said and done with the construction, that we'll extend the parking lot off of Ashley, and then we need to redo the parking lot behind the building. The big challenge that we're working on now is just working with the engineering and the transportation people to figure out how do we get the buses, and how do we kind of situate those and make them fit in the parking lots. So, but that would be towards the end of the project. We would do it in the summer, once all the rest of the construction is basically the heavy work and heavy machinery is gone. Next slide. This is a concept. So if you look at that dark red portion with the yellow, so this is roughly kind of the concept that we're working with for the media center, and there's some other areas. This kind of shows, you're going to see some basic concepts of what it would look like, and that's what we're getting feedback on now. One of the things that everybody talked about is they like this leaf motif. We're looking at is, one is Ashley's the All-Stars, and Aldert's the stars. So do we do stars instead? Next slide. This kind of gives you, is what the media center would look like at Ashley. You can see those things on the wall, the leaves, it's sound deadening material. Instead of doing a rectangle, we do something so that's what we're looking at. Same thing with the clouds in the ceiling. that's been a whole discussion. This is just another angle of it. This is so looking out from the other angle. So it's from inside the school out. Next slide. And then this is just another angle of kind of where everything. So one area would be kind of what we've been doing, books in one area kind of at all of the media centers. And then you'd have these like collaboration areas and places where they could bring students down. And you can notice this just has a different, this is now circles instead of leaves and so on. Next slide. And talking about furniture and things like that, we don't necessarily have to do the furniture right now, but we need to kind of have a concept. It's all the fixed thing. So everything that gets bid now is what's fixed, what's going to be there, because we don't want change orders later. Furniture will come at a later date. But if we're going to get, like, this is a reading nook that we've been discussing to give kids opportunities to kind of fit that within the book areas. And so those are some of the discussions that are going on now. Next slide. Then this is Naldrit. Naldrit is probably going to be the larger challenge of the two. It's just the whole goal has been to take those public areas and push them more towards the front. You can see, so the yellow area up at the top, that would be a media center and a new office, because the office is kind of buried. That would bring that out. And then again, we'll add an addition off the back there. So those are the added areas. And then again, where you can see the red and the blue, is there was already an addition of larger classrooms. So we would make those, the red area would be taking smaller classrooms, making them into larger classrooms. But everything would get kind of what we did at Lighthouse, new flooring, new lighting, and upgrades on ceilings and the whole 9 yards in order to do that. Again, next slide. So same thing. Naldrit has been a challenge just because the parking lot is just not large enough as it is now, and it's off that blind curve. So we feel this one, the exterior, we're actually better on this one right now, working through within Ashley, because you can kind of see the two overlapping green areas. So the top one that kind of goes into the diamond area there, that would be now parent pick up and drop off and all that. And so we'd have it separated from the where the buses would go. The bus loop in the front, that's typically, those are our special needs buses have been going there. The rest of the buses would go into the main parking lot as they do now. And then you can see kind of like a darker green between that. That would be kind of a sidewalk that would separate the two, because your goal is to try and separate parent pickup and drop off from buses as much as possible. We are already talking about, this was brought up by somebody from the public last month. So see that sidewalk that cuts through the back? We actually own the lot that goes into the subdivision. We have walkers. We will already are working on having, because that's where the addition will go, a construction fence go up. That's more than your temporary construction fence. And just so that will also be in place. And then once it's all said and done, then we can have like a permanent fence there. Next slide. So again, you can see it's kind of this is just a concept. So this is just the library portion of it. And next slide, you can kind of see what the rendering would look like. There were several ones that had different like color combinations and all that, but I figured one would be enough. Again, area for books, looking at it from the other point of view. So you would have that, there would be a little classroom, computer lab, things like that off to the side. So it follows along the same things, and it would kind of stick with what we've done in other buildings. Next slide. This is a rendering of the what's current library, what would become, these are ideas for when we turn those into science and STEM rooms, how would they do that? The challenge is, especially in the areas that are kind of like buried inside the school, there's not windows there. And so how can we make it kind of look like that? So part of that is lighting ideas. There's also concern with how the echo, because we'd like to keep the volume that they have there for the ceiling, but then there's just challenges with that in echoes and things like that. So these are, again, just concepts. Next slide. And another concept we're looking at is if we can't put a window in and we're not putting skylights in, do we do something that kind of gives that idea of it's open, you're seeing the sky. And so you can see kind of the same thing, do a higher ceiling and then these clouds kind of below that. Next slide. South. This has been one that we focus on the elementaries. We've been working on this. This is, I can tell you just as of our last meeting, this is not where it's going to be just because we have different options. So part of it, the red area was their initial focus. We were like, okay, can we kind of do that? The challenge is, and this is just because the people that we had come in, the enrollment that we've had come in the South, is can we take all of those classrooms offline? Because South ended up having about 68 kids more than we anticipated. So there's more classroom usage. So now we're kind of, how can we divide that up? The other thing is South does not have a sprinkler system. So then we're weighing out, do you sprinkle the whole building? What's the cost of that versus there's other new requirements that you have where you see it like here, where there's the fire doors that break up the hallways. We might have to trying to get clarification on that because there's just the new laws. You have to break up smoke zones and things like that. So if kids are coming from one classroom and you have to have two doors if it's more than 1,000 square feet, but then they have to go in two separate smoke zones. So if there's a fire at one end, they all go through the other door and you can't have smoke travel down. So we're working on all of that and working on phasing, but that's kind of where we're at with South. The science area, that's the kind of brownish area at the bottom, or orange, if you want to call it that. Kind of have a good plan on that. That's when we were meeting with the science teachers. We have a good idea. We met with the engineering teachers and so on to kind of, that's where the band room in the lower right hand corner of the white section, that is where the band room is working on almost being complete. And then we have a storage area, and then what will be the small engine repair. And then it goes into to the left, those green areas, engineering, and then there's the maker space. So we have a good idea with that one as well. And then it's just now, how do we kind of parse that out and make it fit what's going on with the elementaries as well? But again, when it's all said and done, we're basically going to touch almost every square footage in the building of some sort. And it's just, how do we chop that up in that building? And what can we pull ahead? What can we do? And fit all of the code things and it comes down to just a lot of it. It's like sports. It's a game of inches, like we know with the bathrooms. Going to redo the bathrooms, and it all came down to how far because you have to have a certain amount. You have to fit ADA requirements. So how many inches can you get out from the wall and all of that? And so we can do a 1-for-1. We're pretty sure of that. So then otherwise we'd be losing bathroom space. And then if you lose the number of bathrooms versus the number of students in the building, and it's more of an issue in the elementary because then it affects SAC. And so it's just going through all these ripple effects of how far do they have to go for a restroom and how does it affect the other licensing. So just to give you an idea of where we're at, but we'll do our final plan and have that off next week. And then we'll hope that the state can look at it and approve it before we get it. Same thing. Here's kind of the plan for the exterior. This one's a little bit easier because with South being originally a high school and the students don't drive, it's not as large of a thing, but we know we need quite a bit of work on the parking lots. So the red zone is out by where the old shoreliner is. And so that's not used that much. So we'll be able to close that. We'll be able to do that. That would be a pull ahead area. And then we'd move into trying to do the main lot in front. And then we'd finally pick up in the back with the green area, and that whole, because we need staging areas for everything, that'll be last because you'll have heavy equipment driving on it. And we don't anticipate that the condition that it's in now, that it'll hold up well in the long run with all of that. So that's why that'll be the last portion. Questions on this?
Is it safe to say that the punch list for the high school and lighthouse are complete?
No, they should be done. It's 60 days typically. So they got it. So basically it'll be about third week of October. They should be done.
All right.
Is South planned to add air conditioning for the gym? Is that part of anything?
Currently, that's not in this phase. The hope is every building we're kind of going back to a second time. So, and if we, depending on how, bids come in and all that, that would be part of the wish list that we could do at the end. The same thing.
So it's part of for like a wish list, or is it part?
It's part of, if all of these first phases go well and we have the money left over, then that would be, we'd come back to, or if we can fit it into the energy bond, if that works as well, because that would also be able to fit.
Anyone else?
Are we accepting non-bond questions?
Yeah.
Several of our properties went into a hold earlier, I think it's earlier this week. And I'm wondering why we don't have an on-site one-click solution to lock all of our exterior doors and not have the key cards work. Because from my understanding, at least at South, we went into a hold, but then some people were out of the building, and when they returned, their key cards worked and they were able to get back into the building.
We do. We actually installed the panic buttons that will go and put everything into a lockdown. But if we don't, on a hold, you still operate everything as normal.
Right. But you still don't want the
Yeah, we don't-
opportunity for anybody to tailgate
No.
somebody else inside
No.
the building.
Yeah. But the buttons that they have that are one button, it does everything. It locks that down. It also contacts authorities and the whole 9 yards.
I think to Jamie's point, can we not go into our card access system and lock down a school?
Yeah, we could do that. It will be on as part of the phone system when that's going. So that's what we're working on now. So we have 4 buildings that they'll have that, because they'll have buttons that basically you'll have, and so you'll have a lockdown, you'll have a secure, you'll have a hold and all that. And then when that's done and programmed, then you'll be able to choose between those. Otherwise they have to go in and do it kind of manually.
So I want to make sure I understand. Right now, you don't have the capability to lock
No.
down a building electronically
Not in
with key cards.
We do, but not in one foul swoop unless you hit the buttons that we added, which kind of is the.
Are we
the lock.
going to add that you can isolate a building and turn off the
Yes,
card
that's
readers
part
in
of the
that building?
whole
Okay.
emergency alert.
Without hitting a
with the
button, though,
phone.
without having the police
Yeah.
show up, I can lock
Yes.
down a building.
Yeah, so you'll see on our new phone system that's going in, they'll basically, they will have buttons that they could hit depending on if it's, because they're also color coded, because that's the new state law. So
Right,
then
right.
we'll line that up. So one button will be locked down. It does everything, same as that panic button on the
Okay.
wall. One button will be just a hold. One will be secure depending on what they have. And then there will be an accompanying message that goes across on the system or on the phones or anything that will also say that, along with a color. If it's, for some reason, code green is not like release, it's one of the things. So
Mhm.
like it'll be green if it's that. If it's lockdown, I think
Okay.
it's blue and so on. Yes. So that is going in as it goes now.
Anyone else?
I'll just say, since we brought up, I wasn't going to even bring this up, but since we're talking about it, I think there's a lot of people in the public just hold and lockdown are the same thing, and they're very different.
Yes.
And so in the future, when we do go into a hold, maybe when we release our statement, add in as a reminder, a hold is not a lockdown. Here's what a hold is, just so people are not posting on social
Yeah.
media and calling board members or calling administration and saying, why are we in a lockdown when we're not?
No, and I think we actually did that. Nobody's just allowed in or out of the building and
Right.
everything, but
Okay.
yes. And then as we train that, once we get guidance more from the state on all that, because on how to use language, what language they're going to do, because the law just said everybody has to use the same language. They haven't decided which protocol that they're doing. We are guessing that they're going to use what most districts are using. So once we have that, then we'll use the same terminology and everything from that.
All right, let's move on to hearing in the public. I actually don't have any requests to address the board. So seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as it has been presented.
Can we,
I'll make the motion.
Oh, hang on a minute. Sounds like
yeah,
Oh,
Dennis had something.
yeah, can we remove the personnel report from the consent agenda? I just have some questions around the personnel report.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented and separate out the personnel report for a separate discussion and actually approval.
I will make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Knox. Do I have a support?
Second.
Supported by Mr. Powers. Call the roll if you would, sir.
Ms. Knox.
Yes.
Mr. Powers.
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger.
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer. Mr. Vinatieri.
Yes.
Richards is yes, and Mr. Green.
Yes. All right, so the motion carries. I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Richards.
I just have some questions around the personnel report. And the first part is just mainly for my self-education, I guess, but is this personnel report where we're changing like a 6th hour for some of the teachers, like the percent of the hour? Is that just for the one-time pay cycle, or is that a permanent change for the entire year?
It really depends on the teacher and whether if it's just for one trimester, or if it's for the entire year.
Okay, so the group on this one with the full-time employee change for the group of teachers, there's like 10 teachers, like for the 6th hour. Is that for the semester or the tri?
Yeah, really, all of them are at least trimester one. Some
Right.
could be.
And I got a couple of emails and phone calls in regards to this calculation versus what some of the staff members are coming up with for a calculation. Can you just walk me through how we come to this calculation and how staff members are getting?
Yeah, so the
getting paid?
calculation is based off of the rate, and it's because each trimester it's broken down by day. So because they're not equal things, so we break it down by the number of days because there's not the same number of days in the pay period as in each trimester.
So it's based off the number of paydays during.
Yeah, and Todd actually is part of that, so he can give you some. He can help if you have other questions.
All right.
So I'll kind of jump in on that. So we've got it as a 1.056 full-time equivalent. That's obviously, so we're moving them from a 1 for this trimester to a 1.056. How do we arrive at that 0.056? Because if they're truly normally a 5-period employee and they're picking up a 6th period, shouldn't we be moving them to a 1.66 like repeating scenario?
Yeah, so the way we do it is we basically take 1/6, right? Because they get 6 hours a day and they are supposed to receive 1 prep hour and 5 hours of instruction. So if they add a 6th hour of instruction and don't have a prep, then what we would do is we'd take 1/6, and that if you divide 1 by 6, you come up with 0.167. And then roughly, Phil said it, it's a little bit different because each trimester is a little bit different. But roughly speaking, a trimester is a third of that number. So if you take 1.167 and divide that, well, I'm sorry, take the 0.167, divide that by 3, and you will likely come very close to that 0.0536, whatever it is. Yeah.
So is this a change that automatically rescinds after the trimester?
No.
So it stays in place until we make a payroll change?
Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, yes is the answer.
So if these 10 teachers didn't keep the 6th hour for next trimester, you'd be bringing them on a payroll report back to
they're
us.
Going back, yeah.
No,
Well, if they go back to the one, we don't.
I think what
So it
you're,
takes a board vote to move them to a 1.056, but not a board move to move them back to one?
they won't move back. So if you're only teaching one trimester, you would get your full FTE plus the other 0.056 FTE for that first trimester.
Correct.
If you're teaching all 3 trimesters, then we would present to the board 1.167 FTE, and that's for the entire year. So we would never come back to you and ask you to change that unless potentially somebody was committed to teach a 6th hour in the 3rd trimester and they decided not to. And so we had to change that FTE.
So you're still going to have to come back for the second trimester for these employees at a 1.056.
Only if they choose to, only if they're required. I don't think it's a choice. Well, it's a kind of a choice on their part if they want to do it, but only if they're required to add a 2nd or 3rd trimester that we're currently not planning on.
Okay.
So basically, if I'm only planning on teaching the first trimester of the year, I'm going to have something that comes to the personnel report that says I'm going to work for 1.056 FTE, and then we're going to pay them out for the remainder of the year for that FTE.
Okay.
And then the only time we would come back for that person is if for some reason they stopped teaching that 6 hour, or initially we told you that they were going to teach all 3 trimesters and they're only teaching 1, then we would have to come back to the board.
I guess I still don't understand the math. Go ahead.
No, I'm thinking, I think I'm right where you are, but I might be able to explain it.
Okay.
So you're taking the 1/6 and you're dividing it by 3, but that means you're assuming they're only in this trimester, and now you're spreading 1 trimester of extra hour pay over 3. But if
Yep.
they come, if they're doing it all year, they're
Right.
teaching the 6 hour all year. So come second trimester, are you doubling what they're getting
No.
extra, and then you're shorting them?
No.
Because
So
you
if I'm-
want-
if you're
you want
teaching-
doing
if you're
6
teaching-
hour, you're taking that 6 hour and dividing it into 3, and you're only giving them 1 of the 3rd now.
That's where I was going.
You're shorting them 2/3.
We are not doing that. So if somebody's teaching, and there may be, I'm not sure, because we did have some errors
I think we're talking
initially
two
that
different
we
things.
fixed, who you're referencing, but the way it should be presented is that if you're working all 3 trimesters, you should have an FTE of 1.167, and you are getting paid for that amount. So we would take your salary times 1.167, so roughly a 1/6 more, and add that on to your salary, and you would be paid that for the entire year. We're not doing, we're not stacking trimesters, if that's what you're thinking, like, hey, in the
But
first trimester, we're going to pay,
1.056 though, like, and I
that's
think
for the
that-
whole year, because you're only teaching 1 trimester.
But if I teach 3 trimesters,
Then you would get 1.167. It's 3 times as
one's
much.
listed on this report as 1.056.
Well, then maybe the report isn't accurate, because I don't think every single person is.
okay, so I guess that's where we're getting to.
If you give me a name that you're talking about, I can probably,
I don't know, because I don't know who
No.
is doing what, but I'm just saying, like, all the 6 hour people are listed as 1.056.
The first person on my list is Emily Burke or Emily Berkey, teacher, 6th
Yeah.
hour, 1.056 FTE. So I get that we're making this change for 1 trimester,
Mhm.
but if you just continue to keep it at 1.056 for
If they
the
go
rest of the
three,
year,
I see what you're
right?
saying.
No,
it's because the
So-
next one should be 1.02 or something.
You
guess
should be
what I-
getting a
yeah.
0.056
Yeah.
every
No, it should
trimester.
be 1.6. If they're doing it all year, it's 1.167 or whatever
Yeah.
it is. And then, but if it's only 1 trimester, then it's 1/3 of that. Yeah.
Right.
So we generally know at the start of the school year what somebody's going to work. Are they going to work a trimester, 6th hour for the entire year? And if that's the case, they should be on there at 1.167. If we believe they're only going to work 1 trimester, we would give them the 1.056.
Okay, so I understand that for this trimester. Maybe I'm just,
It's just that needs. to be
Not
updated
understanding.
to Reflect.
It does.
so you have to come back on a different personnel report and modify that.
If it's wrong on the report, we need to modify it. But
Yes.
generally speaking, we would never come back to you and ask for a modification because we know that person's only teaching one trimester and therefore we're asking for 1.056. If we know that person's going to teach 3 trimesters, I'm going to say it's 1.167. It's the whole enchilada.
Yeah.
We're not coming back.
It just needs to reflect that on the report.
It does.
But have paychecks gone out at 1.0?
Well, people are,
Yep.
yeah, there are people saying that they were shorted on a paycheck, but I don't,
There were about 8 individuals that were incorrectly calculated.
okay.
We have since identified those folks. I sent out a communication to them on Monday stating that we will fix that on the first pay in October 3rd, and we will catch them up. Now, some of the issue will happen on a 6-hour every year. It's a little more complicated now with a trimester. The first time we're doing it, there were some issues, and we've had a little bit of turnover in our HR department, so that didn't help. There was some miscommunication and so forth. But what I would say is, even in a normal year with semesters, because sometimes we don't know if somebody's going to teach a 6-hour till literally the day before school starts. Sometimes we do miss for certain folks that first pay period of the school year, and then we catch them up for the rest of the year. In this case, what we're going to do is anybody who didn't get paid, we're going to get them completely caught up as of October 3rd. And then going forward, they will be correct in their pay.
So Dennis, you specifically asked, are you understanding? Are you comfortable with where we're at?
Why, you confused, Pat?
I don't feel like I am, but I feel like if anybody on this list was going to be teaching, we knew now,
they were the full
they
year,
would
it
be
would
at
be
the
1.167.
1.167,
Yeah.
which you're talking, that's 16.7% of someone's
Correct.
Yeah.
salary. So
Which is
There's nothing-
1/6.
nothing to sneeze at though.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a $100,000 teacher, that's $16,000 of
Correct.
their money.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's substantial.
And there's 8 people on that list that you guys are talking about.
There's 17.
17, okay.
17 on the list.
Well, 17 teachers that are listed here. I believe it was 17
I mean, with the
with the change.
1056.
Correct.
I would recommend that we amend that personnel report.
I don't know, you know, I don't know if that's something you want to do on the fly right now.
No,
But
no.
you
no.
certainly
Thank-
have an approval
you could-
sitting on our
If
desk.
you,
that
if you
we-
chose to, as a board tonight, to table that. we
Yeah,
can
we'll
come
just
back
table
with
it.
a corrected
Yeah.
report.
There's 17.
Yeah, but if we table that, you
That-
technically can't change their pay rates, which means you can't fix the problem on October 8th.
Misses a payroll cycle, right?
You're going to miss payroll cycle.
I don't think we technically need your.
No, because we start. Yeah.
Okay. So now we're getting to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel.
No,
I mean,
because
it's.
we've
but-
always
but
started.
It's, you guys have tacitly approved it when you approved the budget,
Right.
Right.
so. It hasn't been specifically,
Because we run into this always with the August meeting, because we start like, let's just take example, we have a new principal at Naldra.
yeah, or
So
if we hire somebody.
they
at
start
step
getting
5,
paid and then we have it
Before
approved
we
at the board
approve it.
meeting. Yeah.
I got it.
You know, if we hire somebody at step
You
5,
guys would be really SOL if we didn't approve it.
Yeah.
But I guess you're saying that we don't have that ability anyway, so. All right. Anyone else? Any?
I have a non-math
Sure, go
question
ahead.
about the personnel report. Is it typical for us to hire a new hire administrator assistant in at step 11, or is that specific to that position?
Yeah, it depends on the experience that they have and it depends on the candidate pool that we have.
It
And-
depends on, what was the last part? I'm sorry.
Depends on the candidate pool that we have and.
Mechanical what? Oh,
Candidate.
candidate pool. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
if they're a mechanical engineer, but the candidate pool.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a reflection of not having a lot of candidates, supply and demand?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Typically that's the case, or their experience that they have. If you get somebody who's more experienced, it's the same thing we do with teachers as well. If you have somebody who's been, I mean, there was a time where you didn't give any steps, but now you give steps if they have them, and people move based off of those.
All right, anybody else?
On the, I noticed we have the instructional, is it instructional coach? Because Mr. Lombardo had left. Was that re-interviewed for?
Yes.
Anything else, ma'am? Anybody else? All right, well, then I think we can just move on to the agenda because apparently it doesn't matter if we approve this report or not. So,
We will have it amended for you for next month.
all right, moving on then. Let's get into new business. Let's talk about a policy first reading you all have in front of you. This is the employee salary schedules. You'll also find that these are recommendations that came from Miller Johnson, our school policy law firm. And technically, this is a first reading. So there is no board action necessary. However, I did want some clarity onto whether we are choosing option 1 or option 2.
We are choosing option 1, which is
Okay.
what we currently do already, because if you remember last month, we brought the new salary scales for all of the positions, actually the last 2 board meetings. We did non-affiliated last month, and before that, it was for all of the affiliated or bargaining series. This pertains, this is, long story short, this is the first wave of what you're going to see from the Batista case that's at the state, and it's really affects non-affiliated people or anybody who's in a position less than 3 positions, or if you have less than 3 people in that position, that's not in a bargaining unit. And so basically it just says that the board has to approve what's considered a normal salary schedule for those employees, because otherwise that may not be counted towards their pension as they go forward, because otherwise they can't move it going forward.
Any questions on this first reading? Hearing none, we will move on to item number 2, food service state budget resolution. You have before you tonight a resolution, and I would entertain a motion to approve that resolution. I don't think I need to read the entire resolution. So the recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the food service resolution as presented. So for the purposes of discussion, hopefully we'll get a motion in a second and we can move forward.
I'll make a motion that we implement meal charges for students who do not automatically qualify for free meals effective November 1st unless the state of Michigan passes a budget that includes specific funding for the Michigan School Meals Program.
I will second that.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Let's open the discussion. Mr. Powers, you made the motion. Any comments at this point?
No, I mean, we talked about it during
We
his
did?
report out. I think this makes sense, and I think it's probably likely that it'll end up being much ado about nothing anyways, but
Let's hope.
we have to start a plan B, and this is what that does, so.
Any comments or questions or anything else you want to add, Mr. Jankowski? I think we've circled this wagon on this.
No, that's it. And our goal would be to send out a communication this week so we can give them as much opportunity that should it come to that, and then we'll just keep them updated. We'll keep people updated as we know from the state.
For anyone that's maybe watching at home that tuned in later, whatever, can you give a quick synopsis of what this means for our students?
So basically, this is that the board will continue. We will provide notice that as of November 1st, essentially, we will stop providing. Should the state not fund the universal meal program going forward, we will stop providing the universal meals. And so then students and families would have to qualify for the free or reduced program as of November 1st. But if they fund that, then we will be fine going forward.
Thank you.
So just to reiterate, I know we talked about it, but again, anyone else who may have just joined, or it's important enough to me anyway, and obviously Ms. Birkmeyer too, we're trying to put some caveats in. you immediately need to fill out the form if you need help, correct? I know I
That
saw
we
what
don't
Todd had
know.
up there, but
It-
let's clarify that.
So it depends on which form that we go with. So we would go with that. This is again, Todd will probably as he explained. So if we stay in the CEP program,
Mhm.
okay, then they can't use the other form. We're just telling the state that should they not fund it, we are going to pull out of that, and then we have to use the other form. And we're hoping to get clarification of that, but that is how it stands as of right now.
But that still leaves us in the 30-day notice period
Yes,
and possibly with an inability to do anything during that period, right?
potentially.
Yeah, so when you're under the CEP, you fill out a form that is very similar in nature, called educational meals form or something like that. I don't recall the exact name of it. But if you get out of the CEP program and start charging again, for those schools, then you need to fill out the free and reduced application. Even though they're very similar, one cannot substitute for the other. It's unfortunate.
I'm just going to recap one more time. So if you're at home and the
it up.
budget does not pass and reduce or universal lunch isn't approved, Anchor Bay is going to cover the cost for the month of October, but beginning November 1st, if you require free or reduced lunch, you will have to complete some form. So basically, follow Anchor Bay if you need these services, and they will update you on what you need to do.
Yeah, my advice would be as of October 6th, October 3rd is the Friday. I cannot imagine them not having a budget done before then. So then October 6th, we will put something out on whether or not they need to do that. And so just hold tight until we give recommendations. Yes.
I have a couple of questions too. If my child's meal balance, goes in the negative, we do not refuse lunches to those students.
No, we do
correct?
not.
Are we still offering those students the peanut butter and jelly? Nothing I've anything against peanut butter and jelly, but are we still offering them peanut butter and jelly? Or are we going to offer them the full?
It's been a while since I've looked at the meals policy because the last 2 years we haven't had to. But my recollection is we allow at different levels, we allow them to go into the negative.
It's like 20.
As soon as they enter the negative, we start sending emails home alerting them to the negative balance. And typically, I would say in 99% of the cases, it's resolved. We don't have to worry about that. But in those cases where the balance continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger, oftentimes it's a one-off kind of decision as to how we're going to handle that.
So the peanut butter and jelly would be the resource?
Very rarely do we use the
Yeah.
peanut butter and jelly.
But if somebody's running and then if they really run in deficit, typically it's
Hundreds
whatever.
of dollars or thousands.
Well, and what's the situation? Can we get other help? Can we get
Sure.
feed the bay, things like that involved?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's why there's not a standard approach. It's oftentimes varied depending on the situation.
Are we concerned that by, if this goes on prolonged and we're removing ourselves from the CEP program, and then now we're doing just the tradition, and there's two different forms, that we're going to have yes, people will need to fill out like a new form, even if they already had a form. And I guess my concern is that people are going to think they already filled out a form.
Absolutely.
And so
That will be a struggle. It will be a challenge. You're exactly
It-
right.
That's why our communication will not be, they don't have to do anything yet but if it goes past the third, then all bets are off, and then we'll have to, then that'll give us basically 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks. Well, yeah, no, if it's after the third and 28 days, so it'll give us 4 weeks to really kind of get that out there.
So as a footnote to that, if you're listening at home or if you're sitting up here, you need to be calling your elected people in Lansing and tell them that we need this done, not just for the food service part, but we sit in the finance committee and we might as well just put a roulette wheel or a dartboard in there to guess at what exactly is going to happen. We've already had a description of two possible scenarios, and there's a third one out there is the governor's budget. Usually ends up in the middle between the two of them. But it's really hard to not know what you have coming in and what's going to happen and what tomorrow's going to bring. And whatever's going on in Lansing, they've put squarely us and children in the middle.
Mhm.
And we're doing the best we can to, figure out those numbers. So finance committee meetings have gotten a little more challenging when we don't have numbers. And like I said, it could be a dartboard. So anybody, anything else before we vote on Mr. Powers' motion? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, could you call the roll?
Mr. Powers.
Yes.
Ms. Knox.
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger.
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer.
Yes.
Mr. Vinatieri.
Yes.
Richards, yes. Mr. Green.
Yes. Motion carries. Item 3 under new business is award recommendations. The bond team has reviewed the furniture recommendation provided by NBS Commercial Interiors. NBS Commercial Interiors has applied cooperative pricing. Cost includes furniture for areas in the engineering pathway staff workroom. And again, this is at the high school. It is the recommendation to award the furniture as listed to NBS Commercial Interiors in the amount of $17,132.72. That includes providing the furniture and installing. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Knox, supported by Mr. Vinatelli. You have in front of you should be part of your packet, a layout of the room as well as the recommendation. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, sir, if you'd be so kind. It is only 17,000, but still a roll call anyway.
Ms. Knox.
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli.
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger.
Yes.
Mr. Powers.
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer. Mr. Richards is a yes. Mr. Green.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 4 on our new business agenda is a volunteer appeal. As part of our recent policy update, we instituted an appeal process for those parents who wish to volunteer or accompany students on field trips. Current practice is to hold parents to the same restrictions the state places on district employees. The appeal process will allow each parent to speak about their appeal for 5 minutes, and then the board will vote on the appeal. Tonight, we have one appeal, parent A. So if parent A, if you're here in attendance, if you'd like to approach the podium there. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm here to appeal the decision at school, volunteer with my daughter. Apparently, there was an incident about 25 years ago. I've since served in the military with not discharge. As my record has shown, nothing happened. It's my parking ticket in the past 25 years. So just trying to be engaged with my daughter's education, part of her schooling, and if volunteer opportunity arrives where she wants me to be there, I'd like to be there. So I just am requesting that this appeal be reviewed.
So the charges were shared with you guys. The record was shared with you guys in your packet. I will turn it over to the board if you have any questions for parent A. Hearing none, I would open the floor up for any board member that is so inclined to make a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the appeal for parent A.
I have a motion on the floor
I'll support.
and a support from Ms. Berkmeyer. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Knox.
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer.
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger.
Yes.
Mr. Powers.
No.
Mr. Vinatelli.
No.
Richards is a yes. Mr. Green.
No. What does that tally? I believe 4-3.
4-3.
So the motion carries. Congratulations, your appeal has been approved. All right, let's move on to points of pride. Let's start with Mr. Sunnyberger. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm well.
I don't think it's been a long day. I don't think I have anything.
Mr. Powers.
I just wanted to publicly thank our building staff and administrators for the way that they've implemented the new cell phone policy so far this year. You know, as if there wasn't enough change going on, we threw that at them. We got some pretty detailed numbers in our policy committee meeting a few weeks ago, and I think we were all surprised at how well it's gone so far. And you know, that can't be done without implementing the policy with good leadership and good follow through at the building level. So everybody seems to be doing well with it. And I really appreciate that as a board member. We can set policy all day long, but if it doesn't get implemented well at the building level, it doesn't matter. And they seem to be doing a really good job with that. I think we all got that email from a teacher who said she's seeing things in students that she hasn't seen in 10 years in terms of, you know, their social interactions and their connections with their fellow students and staff members. I think one of our building principals, when they held a parent meeting at the start of the year and just announced the cell phone policy, got met with applause from the parents. So, you know, I think most of the parents seem to be on board with it. And I think we're even starting to hear stories about students saying that it's kind of refreshing to be able to interact with their friends and fellow students without the technology interruption. So it's going well so far, and it couldn't go well without our building staff making it go well. So I wanted to thank them for that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vinatelli?
I do have comments today. Thank you. Normally I'd kind of pass this by. 'Cause, yeah, usually it's the end of the day and it's kind of like who's really watching at this point in time. But I do want to talk about something that's very important. And that's based on a very popular game program, which up to a couple of weeks ago, and by the way, these words are written, but it is from me. It's from stuff that I kind of put up ahead of time because I know I get nervous and I might fumble it. So it's all here just so I can keep my words straightened out. But anyway, I and likely many others had no idea of its existence, and the program is called Roblox, which can be accessed via phone, tablet, computer, and which is apparently extremely popular with kids today. And this is to the tune of about 100 million daily active users. The program itself is designed to be harmless. It's basically just you play as like a Lego character, and you play games with other kids, and it's sort of a way for them to interact and sort of engage with people their age. But unfortunately, we live in a world of bad actors. And so individuals with bad intent have used this platform to take advantage of unsuspecting and unprepared kids to groom and obtain certain types of sexually related pictures from them, as well as stage meetups with these victims to engage in, I'll call it explicit activities. The process for this occurring is fairly simple. A user logs onto Roblox platform like anyone else, joins a game with kids, then engages with them questions like, "Hey, how old are you?" And obviously this is following, like they probably get to meet them and make small talk before that, but that's essentially where it leads to. If the kid continues to engage, the conversation may lead to other platforms like Discord or Snapchat, whereby explicit pictures are taken in exchange for in-game currency, also known as Robux. It's like Roblox, but with bucks at the end. In some cases, the predator will continue on at that point, accusing the victim of doing something wrong, saying, "You shouldn't have done that. You're in big trouble. I'm telling your parents." And then they use that leverage to blackmail the victim into sending additional explicit pictures and engaging in other actions that I will just stop there and call it utterly unspeakable. It gets, you get in the world of this, it gets pretty dark very quickly. So you might be wondering, as I have, how something like this has been allowed to propagate itself in a seemingly harmless platform. That's obviously not what the designers had intended for their platform, but that's what it sort of devolved into. They have moderators? Don't they have methods to catch bad actors? The answer is yes, but it's only to the tune of about 3,200 human moderators assisted with AI systems. So utilizing a few thousand moderators to scope through what is actually 6.1 billion chat messages per day, 6.1 billion chat messages per day, and hundreds of millions of hours of voice chat per day, which is evidently infeasible for that moderation amount to actually accomplish. So to get around this, all someone has to do is ask some questions like, "What's your DC?" That's sort of like code word for "What's your Discord?" want to get on Snap as like Snapchat. So like, is the, algorithm code going to ban the word Snap? It's very difficult to go around these things unless you're actually human looking at context directly. So other methods to get around moderation include using emojis or Icelandic text, because it's harder to get through a filter if you use something that looks more like a symbol that someone could interpret as a letter. So as discussed in Roblox Tech Talks episode 28, they put these videos on YouTube. They discuss certain safety measures that they're in the process of implementing to combat sexual predation online, features such as authentic conversations, whereby facial recognition estimates the age of users to screen out users under the age of 13, so they're excluded from certain types of content, as well as not allowing images or videos being shared on Roblox platform. To their credit, these images are not shared on their platform. They're shared on a different site, but they're engaged on Roblox, and that's how the whole process starts. They also have a trusted flagger program whereby their internal safety team approves individual users to flag or report certain types of risky abusive content with streamlined communication. Streamlined communication is the important aspect. So obviously, I mean, I'm biased. I don't have a very good opinion over Roblox. The first thing that comes to mind is, why do you need to be part of a trusted flagger program to get a streamlined communication? If you're reporting abusive content on their platform, no matter who you are, that should be streamlined and ultimately, heightened right from the get-go, no matter who's reporting that. So if it's abusive content, that should be the first thing that's addressed before any other tech glitches. Further, there have been many individuals who will take it upon themselves to decoy themselves as kids to catch predators on this platform, very similar to Chris Hansen's To Catch a Predator from the early 2000s, if you guys recall, which Roblox is referred to as vigilantes and has actually banned them from participation, unfortunately. So there's a lot more I want to mention about this. I believe it's sufficient to say at this point, is my strong opinion, that if you're allowing your kids on the Roblox platform, you are putting them at serious risk. And this is a very, very popular program. A lot of kids, even our district, likely are using this program. But if you want information on this, feel free to look up Roblox, and I'll see this because I know a lot of people might want to like go back to this point in the video on the YouTube channel and listen. This I'll speak clearly for this. It's called Roblox Tech Talks episode 28, update on our safety initiatives, and that's a YouTube video. On the other side, there's another YouTube channel called Schlep. That's spelled SCHLEP. And that is a titled video called Roblox Take a Seat, featuring Chris Hansen. Then there's also independent research that's been done by the Heidenberg Research Group. It's titled Roblox Inflated Key Metrics for Wall Street and a Pedophile Hellscape for Kids. And the response to that, Roblox's response, is titled Roblox Refutes Misleading Claims in Heidenberg Report. If you're curious to learn more about in terms of legal action, there's a couple of lawsuits, about a dozen actually, that are going against Roblox right now. One of those is the state of Louisiana by Attorney General Liz Murrill, alleging Roblox created a dangerous environment that facilitates sexual predators and fails to protect children. There's another one from West Des Moines, Iowa, a civil suit alleging grooming, kidnapping, interstate trafficking, and sexual abuse after meeting a predator on Roblox for a 13-year-old. And another one from Galveston, Texas, a federal lawsuit alleging a predator groomed and sexually assaulted a girl after contact began on Roblox. So that's just three. Like I said, there's about a dozen, maybe more at this point. And I urge extreme caution for parents. Ask your kids, have a conversation with them. The internet is unfortunately, a very dark place, and there's threats everywhere. And obviously, if you have a platform with, like I said, hundreds of millions of kids, 100 million kids on there per day, it is just a very easy opportunity for a predator. If they want to engage with kids, that's a very easy place for them to go to do that. And if there's not proper protections in place, which based on what I'm seeing and what I've researched, there isn't, it provides a very bad opportunity for your kids to be exposed and taken advantage of on these platforms. And that's all I have.
So I'll dovetail on top of that, Superintendent Jankowski. It's ROBLOX is Roblox. And just a quick Google search with concerns reveals substantial amounts of lawsuits and stuff like that. So if we could talk to our tech team and see what we can do about making sure that that's not accessible through our Wi-Fi, that would be great.
No, I mean, those are blocked, but we've talked about making it elementary parents especially aware of just the harms that they could have, and so that when they're at home, that parents are just not leaving them to their own devices.
Yeah. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. Ms. Knox?
Just congratulations to parents and students, teachers, administration, staff, on your first month back to school. And also I appreciate the work our administration and the board has done over the past few years so that we are in a position to offer school lunches and we're not scrambling, we're not going to shut down, nothing like that. That's not something you do overnight. So I'm happy that we're in that position.
Ms. Burkmeyer?
I just wanted to also take a moment. I know, like the president said, we had some student losses in the area. We also had a member of our community pass away recently, William Boyd, and I wanted to recognize him because if you've been around Anchor Bay, you've probably been impacted by him in some shape or form. He was very involved with this family owned restaurant. He, assisted with countless fundraisers and donations to our schools, our PTOs, all sorts of things. He was very involved in the school and the community, sports community as well. So it's a tremendous loss for all of us. And somehow he always seemed to have all of the news before anybody else. So I will definitely miss his calls, being told what I was going to learn about next, and because he always knew everything before I did. But definitely want to keep him and his family in our prayers as well, because I think we, definitely have a tremendous loss in his passing. Also want to thank, I went over to the high school one day, took a walk around and was stopped by a lot of staff. It was very near to the start of the school year, but stopped by a lot of staff that were on their prep hour and things as I was walking the hallways, and very happy with the cell phone ban rollout, and thank you to our students as well, because the vast majority have been extremely cooperative and dare I say possibly enjoying and realizing how much they used their phones with this change. But thank you to our students as well for participating and being respectful. Also received a lot of comments about the wonderful work that Ann Harms is doing there as the instructional coach, and that she's been so helpful with technology that's come into the building, but also to some of our new staff and veteran staff, providing a lot of assistance. So thank you to her. And then on a personal note, I also want to thank Miss Kibb, the bus driver of Bus 54, because my children, who are both at Middle School South, are choosing to ride the bus this year because even though their morning route is their longer route, they still ride the bus because it is very fun and they enjoy the trivia that she provides on the bus. And so I therefore don't have to drive them. So I want to extend a huge thank you to her personally, because I don't have to drive. So thank you to all our bus drivers for all these changes, but they're doing a great job and making a long bus drive apparently very fun.
Have you considered the possibility that they don't like your driving?
You know what? I'll take my wins where I can get them.
Okay. Sir?
Thank you. The 2025 band alumni date is October 10th. Please save the date. The Anchor Bay College Night is October 23rd from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the high school commons. The Comfort Closet is looking for new or gently used clothing for teens. The Career Pathways Skilled Trades and More Fair is January 29th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Anchor Bay High School. The Anchor Bay Varsity Dance Team Clinic is Saturday, October 4th and Sunday, October 5th. The Anchor Bay Junior Hoops for 4th through 6th grade starts September 29th with events on October 3rd, 12th, 19th, 26th, and November 2nd. I'd like to thank the school bus drivers for attending the Big Rig event. Great turnout. The ribbon cutting for the Shoreliner restaurant is October 17th at the high school at from 6 to 7 PM. The Anchor Bay High School graduation party and vendor night, I believe this is something new, is Saturday, November 15th. The Anchor Bay Power Puff game is Saturday, October 4th at 7 PM. I'd like to thank the Anchor Bay High School Band for going over to Macon and putting on a great performance for the students. My thoughts and prayers go to the family of Logan Bowen. Thanks, Patrick, for having the moment of silence of the meeting earlier. Ms. Burkmeyer already mentioned it. I'd also like to extend my thoughts and prayers to William Boyd, his family, and the staff at Trini's. The community's lost a great person. When I was running, he called me up and had no fear saying, "Who are you and what do you plan on doing?"
Same.
Right. My points of pride this month is the cell phone away for the day continues to be a success. I'd like to thank the students and staff for continuing to follow the policy. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. I also will touch briefly on the cell phone policy. I live immediately adjacent to Middle School North. And not only has there been a change this year where there are kids actually out on the playground, there's a lot of kids out there and they're having a good time. I have a direct line of vision to the playground and there's nobody sitting on a phone, hanging out, sitting away from the crowd. Lots of kids, lots of engagement, lots of screaming, lots of everybody having a good time. It kind of signals to me that they're not on their cell phones. And if we didn't have a policy like this, quite honestly, 5th, 6th grade, that's about the time they get that first cell phone usually. I have no doubt that they'd be sitting in different segregated groups on their phones. So I appreciate the cell phone policy and I appreciate to Mr. Powers' comments. We can sit up here and we can write policy, but if administration all the way down to our teachers doesn't support it, it doesn't get much traction. One of my commitments to all of you last month was to do some research concerning surveys. And reaching out to MASB, there's definitely some challenges that are out there in terms of how they're used, who's questioned, to the point where if there's something on a survey that deals with a teacher, that has to be now included in the superintendent's performance review. So I'm going to kind of turn it back to the board. And MASB didn't seem to really have any samples, surveys they could send us. And so I'll turn it kind of back over to the board. Is this something that we want to put into policy committee to talk about? Is there still an appetite to pursue this? And I'll have Sherry share the results of her findings in consulting with the MASB legal folks. So you can all see what I'm discussing. And maybe you want to take a look at what's being provided by MASB in terms of feedback, and then we could talk about it again at the next meeting. But I committed to have some information for you at this meeting. So I guess I'll turn it back over, to you guys at this point. Is there anything that you want to do between now and that next meeting? Or would you like Sherry to share the details of what she found through MASB legal counsel? And then maybe we circle the wagons again back in October to figure out if there's anything different we want to do.
Yeah,
Any thoughts?
I'm good with having Sherry send us that information and coming back in October.
Everybody else good with that?
When's our next policy meeting?
Well, I would assume that you guys would probably want to meet between now and then, once you receive Sherry's information and perhaps get together and have a discussion. And just to figure out the legalities of it. And, there's MCL cited in the email. So, we're governed a little bit in what we can do, but I think that's the appropriate step, is to get this information to you guys, get this to policy, and have you guys sit down and take a look at it. And then certainly if we're going to make it part of the superintendent's, it's got to go to executive, where we're going to sit down with the superintendent. And I just want everyone to understand, what the ramifications of doing surveys and what we specifically can ask and not ask. And
We're talking staff surveys, correct?
yes.
Okay.
So, once we involve, the teachers, I know we're not specifically looking at their performance. I know we're not specifically looking at the superintendent's performance, but I want to make sure that we've got a collective plan of how we want to move this forward if we want to move it forward. So I will ask Sherry to share the information with you guys. And then if the committee is so moved, I think policy is a great place to start it. And maybe even policy meets and then we reconvene at our next board meeting to talk about it. But if it's going to have anything to do with his evaluation, certainly we need to meet with him, because we potentially could be changing, the state mandated review process, and we certainly can't do that. So,
So what are we trying to have a survey answer?
I'm sorry,
What are we trying to have a survey answer?
survey answer.
What are we trying to what are we surveying? What question are we trying to answer with a survey?
And that's why I'm kicking it back to policy. What direction do we want to go? Who do we want to survey? How often? And what are we going to ask? And then ultimately probably circle back sometime between then and hopefully maybe our next meeting, if you guys get together soon enough, and have a discussion with MASB, legal counsel, you know, hey, here's what we're thinking. Here's what my policy group came up with. Thoughts?
We don't,
Even to the point where if policy wants to get together and pull the Brad from MASB into the conversation, into the fold, I don't have an issue with that.
we
either.
don't report to the MASB. Like, they have no authority over us, correct? I understand the
Correct.
role, but like,
Correct.
we
But-
don't,
Correct, but the only reason I'm referencing them is because their legal counsel is specifically citing MCLs, you know, commercial, there's laws that protect the way the superintendent's evaluated, the way teachers are.
yeah, I think we're going down a road that
But we can still do a survey if it's not included.
this
on
is
his-
going, yeah, this is.
on
My,
its,
I think my thought was that if we are doing a survey and we start, you know, let's say that the survey results went to all of the board members. And if somebody feels like they're starting to see a pattern or something, I mean, then that's something that either the board discusses in committee or, you know, I feel like the first step would then be to make a goal, not necessarily, like if you're talking about how it affects the superintendent, you know, then the first step would be to make a goal, you know, and not necessarily use it as immediate, like punitive something.
Where did that even come?
So the only thing I'm saying is when we get into surveys, we have to make sure that we're not using them to evaluate teachers. We're not using them to evaluate the superintendent, or we're going down, we're in slippery slope of where we're going. So my only thought was that we move it back to policy, to have a discussion about what we want to survey, who we're going to survey, and reach out to MASB just to make sure that here's the questions that the policy wants to ask. And again, inviting him on to join us would actually be a great idea for policy. Hey, look, here's where we're thinking we're going. Maybe have 2 policy meetings, but I wanted to get this out there just so we could have a discussion about what direction you guys want to go with this. No one specifically said we were going to use it for Mr. Jankowski's evaluation or a teacher evaluation. I certainly had the feeling from discussions was we're just looking for where we have some concerns between
Or if you see-
staff, parents, students, and it's not necessarily going to be used for evaluation. But I think the only way to get this started is to move it back to policy, unless you guys want to handle it a little different way.
I'm fine discussing it in policy. I just don't know where this concern is coming from when it's never been something that we've brought up as the end goal of doing the surveys. It was more about us being in touch with the morale, with, you know, the concerns, the things that are going well.
Yeah, I think
at
informationally, it's
boots
a
on the
great
ground
plan.
type of a thing. So we
But I
never
think-
once indicated that, you know, hey, Phil, look at this survey, you're out of here. Like, we never even like.
No, I'm not,
you
and
know,
I'm certainly not saying that. But that's where your attorney's going to go to say, hey, look, there's some laws that depending on what you want to do with the survey.
Yeah.
So
mean,
I think honestly, I'll say it again, is the best way is to kick this to
I'm fine
policy and let you guys discuss
starting
where
it
you
in
want to go.
policy, and I don't.
If there's something else you prefer, we can do that, but I'm not sure how
I mean,
the rubber
no,
meets the
I'm
road.
fine with it. I'm surprised some people would want us to start in policy, but I'm happy to do it.
Right, I agree.
Well, is there somewhere you think it should?
No, I'm
No.
there. No, I'm good with it. We'll take it on. Bring it. Yeah. we're good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Done. Perfect. So I want to share that with you guys. And again, I'll get you the information that we got from MASB. You're right. We don't report to them. We're part of their association, but they are a great resource for poking around, which is what I would call what we're doing, trying to figure out what we want to do. That's all I have. Legislative update. I think you probably already gave it to us.
Yeah, we kind of,
Anything changed in the last hour?
there's nothing that has changed. And again, this has been the least productive legislature that we've ever had. They've only passed 7 bills in almost 10 months. And we're hoping that they're going to pass about, I think, there's 20 different bills that have to go as part of the different budgets and all that stuff. So we shall see.
Committee updates. I think we touched on a little bit about what finance primarily met about. Policy has a new assignment.
Nothing going on in
that they've
policy, nothing to
welcomed
report,
and
yeah.
excited to take on.
Yeah.
Is there any other committee updates from anyone else? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Motion carries, meeting ends 9:35.